Welcome back, everyone. This is your host, the DN WhatIf, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into part 1 of What If Deku Had a Quirk That Let Him Travel Through the Internet? A special shout out to the original creator, JazzTazz. This is the permission statement by the author in written. Please make sure to show your support by checking out their work from the description. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. Chat name, the pros and cons. Unknown user has entered the chat. Drugs. I thought we had everyone already in? Almighty leader. We do, this isn't someone we know. Unknown user. I like how I got here. I'm just gonna leave now. Unknown user has left the chat. Unknown user has entered the chat. Unknown user. What? Unknown user has left the chat. Unknown user has entered the chat. Unknown user. Can someone try kicking me out or SN? Drugs has kicked unknown user from the chat. Unknown user has entered the chat. Drugs. How? What are you doing? Unknown user. Nothing on purpose? It seriously won't let me leave. Cockatoo. Wait, who are you? Unknown user. Someone who's trying to leave. Unknown user has left the chat. Unknown user has entered the chat. Unknown user. Covet. Language. Cockatoo. You're one dog. Covet. Shut the fuck up. Almighty leader. Since you are unable to leave, change your chat name to your actual name. Unknown user has changed their name to Blur. Covet. For some strange reason, I don't think that's your real name. Blur. Well, this is a group filled with people I don't know. Any sane person wouldn't put their real name. Covet. Fair enough. Totally explains why you joined in the first place. Blur. I did not at all mean to join. It just happened. Covet. Sure. Blur has left the chat. Blur has entered the chat. Blur. Damn, I was really hoping it would work that time. Not a cop. Why do I have 34 notifications? And who is Blur? Drugs. Random person who joined and can't leave for some reason. And Nezu said we get to keep them. Blur. Wait, what? Drugs. Do you like cats? Blur. This way. Covet. Pint. Drugs. Yes. Blur. What just happened? Cockatoo. Shows one weakness, cats. Blur. Still doesn't explain a thing, but okay. Covet. At Cockatoo, you're an idiot. Cockatoo. Why you so mean? Covet. You've just told them my name. Cockatoo. No, I told them your nickname. Different things. Covet. Still an idiot. Cockatoo. Sad face. Blur has left the chat. Blur has entered the chat. Covet. I'm surrounded by idiots. Blur. Look, it could have worked this time. Covet. My point still stands. Blur. Drugs. You'll get used to it. Blur. Thanks. Not a cop. At Blur, I have a question. Blur. Yeah. Not a cop. Why'd you choose the name Blur? Blur. Feels like something a cop would ask. Drugs. A satsvkavskdashkolj, he got you there. What are you talking about? His name clearly states he isn't a cop. Blur. I'm not convinced. At not a cop, why do you ask? Not a cop. Well, the other week I was assigned a case. It's about a hacker. Named Blur. Blur. So you are a cop. Not a cop. Not the point. Blur. Drugs. That's my new favorite word. Covet. Blur, what have you done? Blur. Covet. I will never get a straight answer ever again. Cockatoo. You never got one to begin with. Covet. Not the point. Blur. Sorry? Drugs. Don't be. It's the perfect word to have ever been created. Almighty leader. It is getting late. May I remind you, many if not all of you have work tomorrow? Drugs. Don't have to tell me twice, Nezu. Blur. Shit, Nezu's in this chat? Drugs. Yes, and we fear his power. Blur. So I'm stuck in a chat with Nezu? Blur has logged off. Almighty leader. I expect you all to follow Blur's lead. Drugs has logged off. Speed has logged off. Cockatoo has logged off. Coffee has logged off. Not a cop has logged off. Almighty leader has logged off. Izuku could not believe it. He had gotten stuck in a group chat full of pro heroes, and likely an officer that already knew of him. And worst of all, that's enough internet for one day, Izuku thought to himself, turning off his quirk. Some of you may be asking, how did Izuku find himself in this situation? Izuku also questions how he got himself into this situation. 5 minutes before Izuku got stuck. Izuku had just finished another hard, boring day at school. He had finally gotten to his room, finally able to use his quirk in peace and quiet. Now in the internet, Izuku could do anything he wanted. And today was the day he'd finally get past UA's firewall. When Izuku was in the internet, firewalls were just literal walls for him. The weak ones were like a step. The tougher ones could be taller than apartment buildings. UA's firewall was of the latter, and was the tallest firewall Izuku had ever come across. All this meant was that Izuku was soul-bent on finding a way over it. This time Izuku was trying to jump on different tabs to find his way up it, which he was surprised he hadn't tried earlier. He had chosen to use sticky note tabs, all lined up like big stairs he had to jump on to climb, while also balancing in this weird 2D/3D world that is the internet. Izuku got to the top of his makeshift staircase, only to realize he had run out of sticky notes. There wasn't much of a gap yet, so Izuku jumped for it. It wasn't like Izuku could get too hurt here anyway. And Izuku made it. He just had to get down now, to the other side. Izuku had never been so thankful in his life. Once he crossed a firewall once, no matter how much it changes, Izuku never has to cross it again, all thanks to his quirk. Once Izuku found a somewhat easy path down, he started to look around. He could look at this year's sports festival events early. Or he could see a list of the teachers working there. Or even see students' quirks. So many quirks to analyze. Then Izuku tripped. And quite literally fell into a group chat connected to UA. Present. Izuku had stopped using his quirk hours ago, having spent those hours staring at the ceiling. He had finally been able to get over UA's firewall. But now Nezu at least somewhat knew of him. And that was terrifying. And that group chat has an officer in it who knows of him. But there's a bunch of new quirks for Izuku to analyze now, with video footage of them in practice. Then Izuku realized something. He had access to UA's files, both to view and change them. That could mean he could add some. He could add ways for the students to practice their quirks. Ways students could improve their quirks. The weaknesses and how to make up for them. Which also means then Nezu wouldn't see him as a threat, so he wouldn't have to worry about what Nezu thinks of him anymore. Izuku would sleep on it, let his hopefully less sleep-deprived brain decide whether this is a good idea or not. Izuku arrived at school with excitement for the first time in years. Today was just revision on stuff Izuku already knew. As long as it seemed like he was busy, he could focus on quirks all day long. Around this time of the year, most teachers took a break. They told students to study, but weren't paying any attention to whether the students were actually studying or not. All Izuku had to hope for was to be left alone. And for the most part he would be, during the lessons that is. Kaken would be too focused on actually studying, and his lackeys wouldn't be able to do a thing to Izuku during class. The teachers made everyone be quiet during these times simply to have a break from the chaos class normally is. During lunch Izuku would run up to the roof, before disappearing into the internet. He'd always set a timer to make sure he went back to the real world a few minutes before the bell rang. Izuku was halfway through analyzing someone named Mirio Togata when the bell rang. Izuku got up as quickly as possible before running out of class. He hadn't brought any lunch today and had no interest in trying to get through the cafeteria unseen. So he went with his default plan of going up to the roof. Izuku went into the internet, only for the chat to be to his side, looming there, tempting him. And it's not like he had anything important to do. Chat name, the pros and cons. Blur is online. Blur. Hey, is anyone online? I'm bored, so I might as well get to know the people. I'm stuck in a group with tongue sticking out. Drugs. Only if we get to know about you. Blur. Sure, I guess? Nothing too personal though. Drugs. Obvi, I wouldn't answer any personal questions either. Cockatoo. Nem that it a lie and you know it. Drugs. And anyway, we don't have a bunch of time before getting back to teaching. Blur. That makes sense since Nezu's in the chat. Favorite colors? I'ma be honest, I have no idea how to talk to people. Drugs. Who hurt you? Blur. Am I meant to answer that or? Cockatoo. I mean, I guess it's a personal question. So, Blur. Meh, we wouldn't have enough time anyway. Can someone else come up with the questions though? What the hell have I come back to? How do you continue a convo after that? Blur. IDK I haven't peopled in a long time. Drugs. Okay, seriously, who hurt you? Or mentally, physically, or emotionally? Some have done all three, but just checking what you mean. Drugs. Cockatoo. You good dude? Or yes? Why wouldn't I be? Drugs. Did you just then realize this isn't normal? Or oh no, I realized a completely different thing. You guys don't know who I am. So that's why. Never mind. That's not concerning whatsoever. Or I may not be good at peopling, but fairly sure you're being sarcastic. Cockatoo. Fairly sure? Or 100% sure now. Do you blame me that? Drugs. I don't blame you at all. Show is the most difficult to understand. Even in real life. Shut up. Drugs. You love us. No, I hate you all. Cockatoo. What about me? Coffee is offline. Drugs. Askoks jaskaj cage cough. Cockatoo. Damn crying face. Or WTF just happened? Wait, do I want to know what happened? Drugs. Probably not. Or drugs. Oh, I got an idea. Everyone say their favorite band. Wait, Nem having a good idea? Face with tears of joy. Drugs. I will murder you. Cockatoo. Oh God, she typed properly? Sparkles fear sparkles. Or are we gonna answer the question or? I prob don't have a bunch of time before I gotta log off. Drugs. I'll murder him later. I'll go first. Amrav. Seriously great to dance to. Bowling for soup. Wait, do we have to explain why? Drugs. BC I said so. Funny and relatable music? Drugs. Good enough. Cockatoo. Fold. Sung in a really old language. And I love learning different languages. Or I really like listening to Apocalyptica. Most of their songs just use cellos and drums. Drugs. At coffee and at not a cop you need to answer too. Not a cop. What? Drugs. Roll up. Covet. Drugs. You have to answer. Covet. No, I don't. Not a cop. I honestly don't have a favorite. Blur while you're here. Blur. Not a cop. You are insanely stubborn. Blur. Oh, I've gotta go. Drugs. IGTG2. I will get a coffee to answer in this chat someday. Covet. Izuku's timer went off and he headed back down to class. He sighed when he saw his desk. It had the word freak written on it in Sharpie. Midoriya. What have I said about drawing on the furniture? His teacher shouted. Everyone else laughed at Izuku. He sighed again. Clean that up immediately. Izuku nodded before heading to the supply closet. The teacher continued talking. It was moments like this that made Izuku want to use his quirk. To disappear and never come back. To prove he does have a quirk. But he never reveals it. Maybe it's because he fears the aftermath. Maybe it's because he hates the idea people will only be nice when he tells them. It may even be a safety measure, in case anyone found out Inko had left years ago. In case the system put him in a home in the catchment area. Izuku quickly cleaned the words off his desk. He carefully missed the legs trying to trip him as he put the chemicals back. As the teacher continued to talk about whatever he was talking about, Izuku didn't care. He went back to analyzing UA students' quirks. He was really interested in how permeation worked. An explosion broke him from his thoughts. Izuku looked up. Kaken was in front of his desk. He could see papers scattered across the floor. He quickly read he bored. Future careers. Oh, that's why. The teacher must have announced his decision to try out for UA. Answer me, Deku. Kaken screamed. Izuku focused back on him, unsure what to say. He hadn't been paying any attention. That was dangerous while at school. Why the fuck are you ignoring me? I didn't hear what you said. My ears were still recovering from the explosion. Izuku hadn't meant to say that. He just had to hope Kaken wouldn't take this as looking down on him. Tisk, stupid Deku, why the fuck are you even trying to get into UA? The teacher had mysteriously disappeared. I'm going to be the only person from this shitty school to get in. You hear me? Izuku nodded, not trusting his voice at that moment. The bell went. Izuku tried to start packing up as the rest of the students left. He was just about to put his homework away when it was taken from him. Stupid Deku, how are you meant to get in if you don't do your work? One of Kaken's lackeys stole his work. Kaken ripped it out of the lackey's hands and blew it up. They all laughed as Izuku watched the ashes fall to the ground. Izuku mentally sighed. Kaken stopped right by the door. If you really want to be a hero, pray for a quirk in your next life and take a swan dive off the roof. Izuku froze. Kaken and his lackeys laughed. Then they left. Izuku stayed. He processed what Kaken had said. He never thought Kaken would say that. Everyone else, sure. Everyone else had said it too many times to count. Izuku pushed it to the back of his mind. He had to leave, if only to get away from the teachers. They would get him in trouble for loitering. Today Izuku decided to walk home. He didn't know why really. Kids in his class might see him. He could avoid that by going into the internet. But he didn't. He just needed time away from everything. Just as Izuku was passing under the bridge, something came out of the sewer drain. "You'll make a good skin suit," was all he heard before he couldn't see. Before he couldn't breathe. One moment he was dying. Then he used his quirk. Luckily whoever and whatever that was couldn't come with him. Oh fuck, that was scary. Izuku yelled into the void. Ding. All he wanted to do was have a nice walk home. Ding. But of course, he wasn't allowed such things. What the? Oh shit. Chat name. The pros and cons. Oh fuck, that was scary. Drugs. What happened? Cockatoo. Are you okay? Spiel de terre. Oh shit. Is there a chance you can just ignore that? Drugs. Fuck no dude, you are so concerning. As I said. How the fuck did you do that? Drugs. Back to what you said. Drugs. Don't make me do it. Do what? Drugs. I'll call show. Sucks to be you, I don't actually know him. I only know him. Drugs. A coffee scare the rando. Why the fuck was I pinged? Drugs. Scroll up dumbass. Consider. Drugs. Consider. That's concerning. Drugs. Read. But we can't make them talk if they don't want to. Thank you. Seriously, how the fuck? Drugs. Wait, no, show you were meant to make them speak. Nah, I'm good. Drugs. Fuck it. I'll summon someone else. Drugs. At Almighty Leader. Cockatoo. Oh shit, Nem's serious. Almighty Leader. I see I have been summoned. WTF? Almighty Leader. Why can you do it? Drugs. It's Nezu. We don't question Nezu. Almighty Leader. CWCD. Almighty Leader. Shuta, our Ota Alpha Inu Iota Eta Alphata. Cockatoo. Holy shit, Nezu got him to talk. Drugs. Aha, it worked. Almighty Leader. Not a cop. What the fuck has happened here? Drugs. Guts work. Covet. More like the devil's work. Almighty Leader has logged off. Cockatoo. And just like that he's disappeared. Private chat. Almighty Leader. Blur. Almighty Leader. I must ask, how did you get into the group chat? Blur. I honestly just fell into it. Almighty Leader. Interesting. Would you care to elaborate? Blur. Honestly, not really. Almighty Leader. Alright then. Chat name. The pros and cons. Drugs. I fucking found it. Covet. Don't. Fucking. Dare. Cockatoo. Oh god, Nem, don't piss show off. Drugs. I don't care, I said I'd find the answer. And itas jk's zoid sacrifice. Cockatoo. She was so young. Drugs. Not dead. Covet. Nemuri, I will find you. And I will kill you. Sounds kinda like a threat. Cockatoo. Oh yeah, Nem's dead. Drugs. Before I die. First off, I want to rickroll everyone at my funeral. And secondly, show listens to AC/DC and Queen. But most importantly, he listens to this. https://youtube.com/watch?mark v=m8-vg-bq9c&si=nsiki meomer. I know all the hiding spots in this school. I sleep in them all. I can and will find you. Drugs. Not if I keep moving before you go on patrol. You severely underestimate how stubborn I am. Even if you leave the school before I find you. I know where you live. I won't hesitate, bitch. Arabecca, it's not what you think. Drugs. Have I been saved? Cover. Chat name. The pros and cons. Blur. It's Wednesday, my dudes. Drugs. What? It's Thursday? Blur. I've been betrayed. Drugs. Blur. Please someone. Anyone. Understand me. Cover. Road works ahead? Drugs. What? Blur. I sure hope it does. Oh, you are my favorite person in this chat. Cockatoo. What's this? Show bonding with a rando? Blur. I'm not a rando. You just don't know me, yes. Drugs. Imagine not being able to spell yet. Blur. Imagine bullying a child. Drugs. Wait, you are a child? Cockatoo. Really? Blur. Drugs. Wait, no, you can't just send an image and expect us to go off topic. Blur. I can and I will and I have. And I am offended if you don't know where it's from. Drugs. Cockatoo. Blur. What the fuck? How do I know it but you don't? Cover. Because it pains me every time I'm reminded they haven't watched it. Blur. Coffee, you are my new best friend. Cover. Blur. I'm not that bad. Drugs. But you are the most concerning person Eve ever met. And that's saying something. Wait a minute. You're just trying to distract us from the fact you are a child. Blur. Phew. No, I'm not. Not a cop. Wait, you, Blur, the infamous hacker that none of our IT can track. You're a child? Blur. Drugs. Wait, a small child has the police stumped? Blur. I'm not a small child. Drugs. But you are still a child, therefore you are small. Blur. I am offended. A coffee help me, bestie. Cover. No, fuck you. Also never call me that again. Blur. No, you don't get to do that. When we just found out you are a child. WTF? Blur. Not a cop. This whole time. You've been a child. What the actual fuck? Almighty leader. Interesting. Blur. Not interesting. Please ignore. I don't need the cryptid that is Nezu saying interesting. In reference to me. Drugs. Good. Blur is a child. And Nezu is Nezu. Cover. Cockatoo. Wait, no, I'm too young for this. Blur. Wait, what? I am even more terrified than I was before. Cover. Blur, promise me you will never try to take over the world. Blur. Only if you accept your position as my friend. Cover. Oh, fuck you. Fine. Blur. Almighty leader has logged off. Drugs. The adrenaline coursing through my veins. I think I just lost 10 years off my life. Cockatoo. You and me both, Nem. I don't even work at UA. And I fear my life now. Drugs. Wait, did Blur say again? Cover. Good. Cockatoo. Wait, Nezu hasn't done that here. Which means it happened. In a different chat? Not a cop. A child? Blur has logged off. It had been a rough day. And of course Izuku couldn't get to sleep. He hated that stupid doctor for the misdiagnosis. He hated Inko for abandoning him all because he didn't have a quirk. He hated his teachers. He hated his classmates. He hated everyone. The group chat he fell into loomed in the distance. He didn't hate them. He hated the idea of them finding out. He hated the idea of finding out he was meant to be quirkless. He hated the idea of them finding out about his quirk equally. Izuku took a deep breath in. He shouldn't focus on what might happen. Izuku exhaled. Music would help him. Maybe if he listened to enough music he'd pass out. Izuku didn't mind the idea of falling asleep in the internet. It might even be more restful than the real world. Since the day had been insanely rough, Izuku decided to put on his playlist named Angst. It was only appropriate for the situation. And if Izuku sang along, no one would know. Right? Chat name. The pros and cons. 3:17 a.m. Blur. Yeah, here we go for the 100th time. Hand grenade pins in every line. Throw 'em up and let something shine. Going out of my fucking mind. Cover. Kid, why are you up at this time? Blur. Filthy mouth, no excuse. Find a new place to hang this noose. String me up from atop these roofs. Knot it tight so I won't get loose. Cover. Kid, are you okay? Not a cop. It's 3 a.m.? We're here to talk if you need it. Blur. Finally. Cover. Not a cop. I am concerned for Blur. Cover. Same here. I just hope he reaches out. Blur. I don't think you trust. Self-righteous suicide. Cry. When angels deserve to die. God, I'm so fucking tired. Covet. I wonder why you are oh so tired. Not a cop. So we're just ignoring the concerning stuff now? Covet. Honestly, I think he's just singing and not realizing his phone is picking all this up. Not a cop. Oh, that honestly makes a decent amount of sense. Covet. I wonder why. Chat name. The pros and cons. 6:29 a.m. Drugs. Whoa, what happened here? Cockatoo. Now, show, Blur, what were you doing awake at 3 a.m. in the morning? Covet. I had just gotten off patrol. Not a cop. I had to do paperwork for said hero who had just gotten off patrol. Cockatoo. They fine, makes sense. At Blur, what were you doing awake? Drugs. At Blur, you can't be that concerning, then ignore us when we question. Cockatoo. Answer me. Covet. Have either of you considered? Maybe, just maybe. He's asleep now? Drugs. Okay, well, maybe. Boo it, he is a child who has school today. And I know that BC we have work today. So therefore he'll be awake soon enough to get ready for school. Cockatoo. Then we question him before classes start. Drugs. It's a solid plan. Cockatoo. A foolproof plan indeed. Covet. Well, he didn't respond to us earlier when he was supposedly awake. So who's to say he will respond now? Cockatoo. And? Covet. Your plan won't work then. Drugs. Do you think that's going to stop us? Covet. Unfortunately, no. I feel bad for him. Having to put up with you two bugging him. Cockatoo. I am offended. Covet. Chat name. The pros and cons. 11:45 a.m. Blur. Oh, fuck. Drugs. Blur. You appeared. Blur. I have not appeared. I am a figment of your imagination. Covet. Sure, we'll go with that. Blur. Well, this is awkward. Not a cop. Seriously though, are you okay? Blur. Drugs. Blur, I love the word you made. But you need to answer this seriously. You can't just yesn't your way out of this. Blur. But I was being serious. In that point of time I was okay. Just not as okay as I should be. Cockatoo. Which means, Blur, sleep is evil. You don't like me, First you can text weird. Now you add these. And no one is telling me how. Drugs. How do you not know this? I understand the weird texting. But not this. Blur. Covet. We're off topic again. Drugs. Damn it, 10. Hey, it's not my fault. Drugs. Yes, it is. I hold you personally responsible. Look who's taking us off topic now. Drugs. This doesn't count. Yes, it does. If me being confused counts as going off topic, then you yelling at me counts as well. Cockatoo. You are both going off topic. Drugs. Fuck of Zashi, you aren't helping. Cockatoo. At coffee Enem is bullying me. Covet. I hate my life. Blur. Relatable. Cockatoo. Wait, no. Stop both of you. Drugs. God damn it. Covet. Back on topic. Blur. Covet. What was that this morning? Blur. So I couldn't sleep. And so I decided to listen to music. Accidentally sang along. My phone picked it up. Sent it for some reason. Really why, but yeah. Covet. Makes sense. Not a cop. What the fuck were you listening to? Blur. Just a playlist of mine. Drugs. Then it's called Blur. Angst. Covet. Fucking problem child. Blur. Cockatoo. A show gave you a nickname. Blur. I'm going to assume that's good? Drugs. Extremely. Covet. Shut. Drugs. Means he likes you. Blur. Really? Cockatoo. Yup. Blur. Yin yang. Drugs. You good dude? Blur. I'm not crying. Pure. Drugs. But. Blur. I have not had a good nickname Salanjit feel sanis. Yet another fact to add to the collection of concern. Blur. Izuku was sick. Because of course he was. He let his curiosity get the better of him, causing him to get a virus. The annoying thing was it wasn't from anyone at school. All thanks to his quirk, he, in the real world, had a computer virus. Even more annoyingly, it was a strong one. To the point he had to miss school. And for Izuku, missing school wasn't an option. Any time he had in the past was always met with increased bullying the next day. Or would be met with everyone whispering their disappointment. Izuku was honestly tempted to not go to school again once he got better. He could probably get away with it. He just had to fake Inko's email address and hope they wouldn't try calling her. He decided then and there with his feverish head he would stop going to Aldra. Deciding and doing were two very different things Izuku soon realized. Deciding was the first, sometimes easier, step of anything. Doing meant actually following through with the plan. Doing was so much harder than deciding most of the time, and Izuku hated it. He had to send an email through Inko's account without her knowing because God knows what would happen if she realized he had access. Which then meant he had to be constantly monitoring her account for when the school replied so that she wouldn't get the chance to see it. Izuku jumped when an email came through, checking it was the one he needed. To Inko Midoriya. From Hidden Email. Subject: Bank account breach. Ms. Midoriya, you need to act fast. Your bank account has been. Click to read more. Not the one Izuku was looking for then. Izuku half wanted to click to email, if only to infect Inko's email address with this scam. But unfortunately he had other things to do. Another email appeared. To Inko Midoriya. From Fuga Yoshihara. Withdrawing from Aldra. Ms. Midoriya, immediate withdrawal from Aldra Junior High at this time will cost 91,934 yen and 65 sen. You have until XX/XX/XXXX to pay or your child, Izuku Midoriya, will still be enrolled for the remainder of the term. Kindest regards, Fuga Yoshihara, Principal of Aldra Junior High. Izuku quickly hid the email from Inko's inbox. He hated how much he'd need to pay his school just to leave. He should pay as quickly as possible to get himself out quicker. But he would have to pay through Inko's bank account. Without her noticing. Well, he wasn't an infamous hacker, for nothing, if you could even call him that. All he had to do was transfer the amount needed into Inko's account. Then transfer it from her account to pay the school. And hide the transactions. Izuku grabbed money from Endeavor's account. He hadn't grabbed this much all at once before, but that shouldn't be a problem. Endeavor had an insane amount of money and didn't deserve any of it. It was easy enough to pay the school and hide the transactions. And even easier to hide the email confirming such transactions. Izuku was no longer going to Aldra. A weight was lifted off his chest. He spent the rest of his day researching schools. He'd have to finish middle school somehow. Izuku debated whether he should do an online school, but decided against it. If he was in online school, he'd practically never leave the internet, let alone his house. Which if he were to get into UA would mean having to get used to people all over again. So Izuku decided to go to a normal school, though one far enough away that he wouldn't have anyone from Aldra tell people at his new school of his previously quirkless status. That was yet another thing he would have to do. Change his quirk registry. He didn't want a repeat of Aldra. He needed a fresh start. Izuku decided to call his quirk Hack. He wasn't too worried about not a cop finding out who he was, as they have already looked through the quirk registry and would have likely decided to stop at this point. He put in the information section of the quirk registry that the quirk just allowed him to access the internet whenever. He wouldn't reveal that he can teleport with his quirk. It took a while, but he finally decided on a school. Nabu Middle School. It was close enough that Izuku wouldn't need to move. It was just a mess school in general, but Izuku didn't mind. He didn't want to spend any money on a new school other than what was necessary uniform-wise. And of course, since he was joining in the middle of the term, he had to spend more of Endeavor's money. Oh no. The worst. Izuku had everything he needed. All he had to do was actually walk to school. He arrived a few minutes before the bell rang. On the board was a seating chart. Izuku found where he was meant to sit. He was next to someone named Hitoshi Shinso, who he could only assume to be the person with lilac hair. The teacher arrived just as the bell rang. She introduced Izuku to the class, then introduced herself as Satani-sensei. Midoriya, would you like to share your quirk with the class? Izuku already didn't have a good feeling about this school. Nonetheless, he felt like he had to say his quirk. My quirk is called Hack. It just lets me access the internet whenever. He hated his stutter. A few people said his quirk was cool. It felt nice. Sutani-sensei moved on to the first lesson. Class wasn't all that interesting. Soon enough it was lunch. Izuku realized he likely wouldn't have to hide from everyone this year. Before he could even leave the classroom though, people came up to him. Hey Midoriya. I'm Natsuhito Yokoyama. We should be friends. Yokoyama told him. Izuku wasn't sure. He was getting weird vibes from him. Or Izuku hadn't had friends in so long he thought everyone was out to get him. He decided to give Yokoyama the benefit of the doubt. I'm okay. He wished he hadn't. Izuku sat with Yokoyama and his friends, Sakino Kanai and Fumihiro Kitahara. They all seemed nice? Izuku couldn't tell. They all have weird vibes coming from them. He couldn't help but think. Would they still have wanted to be friends with him if he hadn't updated his quirk registry? Or had even had a quirk in the first place? Everyone at his old school didn't seem to, so what if they were the same? Only treating him this way because he has a quirk. Izuku mentally sighed, not wanting them to question him. Oh, by the way, Midoriya? Yokoyama started. Izuku had to hide a flinch. He hated that name, but didn't correct him. Something told him not to let them call him Izuku. I'd stay away from Shinso as much as possible. From what? I think I sit next to him in class. Izuku was worried to say the least. He just wanted to go one day without any drama. Was that too much to ask for? Yeah, unfortunately for you. He's gonna be a villain. Kanai said with a sneer. Izuku could see her eyes change from green to red. Must be to do with her quirk. How do you know? He was curious. While they were all close enough to being adults, they were still all 14. To have someone already planning to be a villain this early had to mean something. He has a villain's quirk. He could brainwash you into doing anything. This time Kitahara spoke. Izuku had no idea what his quirk could be. Has he done that before? Izuku asked. He had a feeling he wouldn't like the answer. Not here. But rumor has it he is the reason his parents are dead. That his quirk came in while driving and he brainwashed the rescuers to save him and not his parents. Izuku was right. He hated every word that came out of Kitahara's mouth. He couldn't stand being there much longer. He got to go. Sutani-sensei needed to tea-talk to me before lunch ended. Izuku lied, hoping to get away. He needed time to think this over. Okay. See ya later, Midoriya. All three said their goodbyes and went back to talking amongst themselves when Izuku left. He still had just over 10 minutes before class started. So he went up to the rooftop like he did at Aldra to think. Once he was finally at the rooftop, he entered the internet and set himself a timer. He figured the group chat would know what to do. Chat name, the pros and cons. Or, I need help with something. So I changed schools. And made some friends? They told me not to go near someone. But I'm not sure whether they are helping me or being quirkist. That's rough, buddy. Or, now is not the time for quoting characters. I have like a few more minutes before I gotta go. Cockatoo. Why don't you get to know the person they're talking about first then decide? Or, that's just it. Want it. But as we've established, I can't people. Drugs. Then how'd you start talking to your friends? Or, they started talking to me and I was overwhelmed and let them. Yeah, that makes sense. Same thing happened to me. By almost everyone in this chat. Or, so it's a good thing? Should I trust their word? Not until you have the evidence they mean well. Cockatoo. Oh, I remember when Sho was interrogating everyone. Shut. Cockatoo. Don't worry, we know it was because of your trust issues. Or, God, people are confusing. Agreed. To summarize what they're trying to tell you. Get to know everyone and figure it out from there. But that means talking to people. But people are scary. Drugs. You weren't scared of us. But I'm not talking to you directly. There's a whole screen between us. Therefore easy. Drugs. I do not understand the logic in that. I do. At drugs, just understand it then. I'm gonna go now. Izuku went back into the real world. He still had a few minutes before the bell went, so he laid down on the roof and started talking to himself. So either I believe everything said to me and possibly be friend with assholes, or I have to overcome anxiety and talk to even more people. And then if I do that, either they were lying to me or I get a bully. Or even both. Izuku took a deep breath. He had this weird feeling that someone had heard him. But he was alone on the rooftop, right? God, Izuku had horrible luck. He sat up and looked around the roof. There, sitting against the roof access, was Shinso. And he was staring at Izuku. Had seen Izuku use his quirk. Most of all had probably heard everything Izuku had said. I am assuming you heard all of that? Izuku was holding on to the smallest bit of hope that maybe, just maybe he hadn't. Maybe he went up there after Izuku went into the internet. But he had no such luck. He knew it when Shinso nodded his head. Could you maybe, not tell anyone? Shinso nodded again. Thanks. The bell would go off in a few minutes. Izuku contemplated. He knew he had to talk to Shinso at some point, get to know him before judging him. But Izuku also has no idea how to talk to people. But again, he doesn't know when he'll get another chance at this. Which means he should talk to Shinso now rather than later. Izuku decided he should do it now. But what the fuck was he meant to say? Hi, I'm Izuku, and I am maybe friends with people who told me to stay away from you because of your quirk, but I have no idea if they are quirkest assholes, and so I should get to know you first instead of assuming they are right. But I have no fucking clue how to talk to you because I haven't really talked to people for the last 9 or so years of my life. Izuku couldn't say something that ridiculous. A choking noise in the background made Izuku stop. He looked back to Shinso, who had the look of shock on his face. Oh. Hitoshi was on the roof eating his lunch like he had been ever since his quirk came in. It was nearing the end of lunch when the roof door opened. Hitoshi stayed silent. Midoriya had come up to the roof. Before Hitoshi could even think of making his presence known, Midoriya disappeared into thin air. Literally. Just poof. Gone. Welp, that's a problem for future me, Hitoshi thought to himself as he went back to eating his butter sandwich. It was all he could have. But he didn't complain too much because it was pretty nice. Don't judge my taste in sandwiches, face with tears of joy. A few minutes later, Midoriya reappeared only to flop down onto the roof. He started talking. Any normal day, Hitoshi would have done his best to ignore a stranger. But said stranger has disappeared and reappeared in the span of a few minutes, so to say he was curious was an understatement. So either I believe everything said to me and possibly be friend with assholes, or I have to overcome anxiety and talk to even more people. And then if I do that, either they were lying to me or I get a bully. Or even both. Hitoshi had a bad feeling. Yokoyama had gotten to Midoriya pretty quickly. And he hated Hitoshi with a burning passion. So it could be concluded Midoriya was talking about him and Yokoyama. Hitoshi stayed silent, unsure what to do. Then Midoriya sat up and looked directly. Hitoshi didn't know whether to be relieved or angry at the look of fear on Midoriya's face. Midoriya asked him if he had heard all of it. Hitoshi nodded. Midoriya asked him to not tell anyway. Hitoshi nodded again. As if I could even tell anyone, Hitoshi thought to himself. Midoriya started zoning out. Hitoshi wishes he could do that right now. But he was on high alert because a new classmate never meant anything good. Hitoshi looked at his watch. The bell would go soon. Before he could get up, Midoriya started mumbling to himself. Hitoshi froze at what he heard. Midoriya had already heard about his quirk. That was expected. Midoriya not judging him by it was not. Hitoshi started choking on air, forgetting how to be human for a moment. Midoriya stopped mumbling, focusing back on him. Color draining from his face. Oh. Midoriya laid down on his back. Hitoshi was so confused. He only knew one way to fix this. And he was going to hate every second of it. But he had to know the truth. You're the new kid, right? Yes. Hitoshi was using his quirk. On the new kid. Welp, that's a problem for future him. What did you mean by, I should get to know you first instead of assuming they are right? Might as well get straight to the point. Yokoyama, Kanai, and Kitahara all told me to stay away from you because your quirk was villainous. The checked out. Those 3 were some of Hitoshi's biggest bullies. It only makes sense they try to get the new kid to join them. I didn't know whether to believe them, so I asked some people in a group chat I fell into. They all told me to get to know you before jumping to any conclusions. They might be right, or they might just be quirkist. Hitoshi was not expecting that. He knew Midoriya was telling the truth. There was no way to lie while under his quirk unless he told them to. What is the real reason you want to talk to me? To know what you're really like. To know whether or not Yokoyama, Kanai, and Kitahara are good people to be near or not. Hitoshi couldn't believe it. Why hadn't you talked to me yet then? I was afraid. Why? I haven't had a true friend since I was 5. Hitoshi froze. No one wanted to talk to me after my misdiagnosis. Hitoshi hadn't had a true friend since he was 5 either. But it doesn't make sense. Midoriya had one of the most heroic quirks he had seen. Being able to access the internet at any time could save so many lives. So why didn't he have friends? He mentioned something about a misdiagnosis. Hitoshi was brought back to reality when he heard the warning bell ring, losing concentration just enough for his grip in Midoriya's mind to slip. "You're the new kid, right?" Shinso asked. Izuku thought it was an odd question. He felt the air around him change slightly. It felt like a rope was reaching out towards him but not quite close enough to wrap around him. He responded regardless, not wanting to make a worse impression than he had already made. "Yes, and the imaginary rope caught him, wrapping around him like a python. His mind filled with fog. It was a strangely nice feeling, like a damp washcloth was draped over his head. Izuku could barely register Shinso asking him questions. Although he was slightly more aware of his answers. He knew he was speaking, he understood what he was saying, but he wasn't meaning to speak. There was some force making him speak. Then it hit him. Kitahara had mentioned Shinso's quirk was brainwashing. Shinso was using his quirk on him to make him answer his questions. Izuku could only hope this would clear up the mess this lunch had been. For the most part, Izuku could guess what he was being asked based off of his answers. Shinso was questioning him on why he wanted to talk to him. Then Shinso must have asked why he hadn't talked to him before. That's what he assumed anyway, as his body said he was afraid. It was true, he was afraid of Yokoyama and his friends being right. He was afraid of them being wrong equally. All he wanted was at least one true friend. "I haven't had a true friend since I was 5. No one wanted to talk to me after my misdiagnosis." Izuku felt like he had ice-cold water dropped on him. All Shinso needed to ask would be what the misdiagnosis was and it'd be all over. There was a huge chance he would tell the whole school of his previous status. Even if everyone knew he should have a quirk, he would still be outcast. Izuku hadn't noticed his body's lack of responses during his panic. He did notice when the imaginary rope fell away, control over his body returning to him. He focused on Shinso, who looked just as panicked as he himself felt. "Shit," they said in unison. "Chat name, the pros and cons. Drugs. That is not how it works." It kind of is. Drugs. Wait. Show is siding with Blur. At everyone look. I regret everything. Cockatoo. What? Wait a damn minute. Drugs. Never. This is groundbreaking. Not a cop. What's groundbreaking? Drugs. Now you should know by now to just scroll up. Not a cop. Didn't expect that from show. Drugs. Right? Not a cop. Someone's getting soft. No, I'm not. Not a cop. Wonder what's happening with Blur. Drugs. No, you can't change the subject. We are busy bullying show. We will talk about Blur later. So close. Yet so far. Cockatoo. No bullying show. Only teasing. Drugs. Potato. That doesn't really work over text. Drugs. Do I care? So shut the fuck up so we can tease you. I could. Drugs has been muted for 1 hour. Cockatoo. How the fuck did you do that? After Nem decided to send my music choices into this chat, I decided to figure out how to stop her from doing such things in the future. Not a cop. That makes a lot of sense. Cockatoo. Still don't understand how yushtsktavksatfkal. Ha fuckers, you thought you could silence me. Cockatoo has been muted for 1 hour. Not a cop. Zashi won't be happy. Better than dealing with Nem. Ha ferajkstgalfukta. What the actual fuck? 10 is on patrol. You underestimate me. Honestly, no, I don't. Speed has been muted for 1 hour. Finally. Peace and quiet. Not a cop. Nem will just find you and you. I don't care. And she won't. She doesn't know every place I nap. Not a cop. You know that won't stop her from trying. I've turned my phone location off. I've turned my Find Your Phone off. She can look through every nook and cranny of UA and only discover a third of my spots. Not a cop. I mean, she can still read this. She went far enough to find 10. What's stopping her from trying my phone? Not a cop. Shit, she's in the office. Run faster. Not a cop. And trying be see you working. Chest cast jimming few. Cover. Do not let her get your phone. Not a cop. What WhatIf dioyu tkink ikm poingf. Cover. Texting and not running nearly fast enough. Not a cop. Ask flage kafel koyelskla. Cover. You good now? Did the witch get you yet? Not a cop. No, I felt. But thanks to that she thought I was going somewhere else. So I'm safe for now. Also, what the fuck do you mean yet? Cover. Nem is a pro hero. You are a detective who does not run all that often. Safe to say I know who's more fit. Not a cop. Fuck you. It's your fucking fault I'm running in the first place. Cover. It's Nem's fault. Not a cop. Cover. What? Not a cop. She can still see the messages and I just heard her scream. And it was close. Cover. Don't say she's close then. You are an idiot. Not a cop. Like you are any better. Cover. Yes I am. You aren't running when she is supposedly that close to you. Not a cop. I am goyajing tayo kyle uyil kotwer. Cover. Have fun with that. Not a cop. Acidft solf jags lakfedsik. I told you that you couldn't silence me and I was rigfdajskshafk. Di pohoni bvak. Ryunjing afjiasen. Cover. Good job. I didn't need to mute you too. Not a cop. Enmity gelpoing. Cover. Did I give the impression I would? Not a cop. Fuikiwi. Sajskaskt. Back again fucker. Cover. Oh no. Not a cop has been muted for 1 hour. Cover. Anyway. I'm really sorry I didn't mean to do that to you like that. Hitoshi tried to explain. Great, he's gonna hate me now because of this. Why the fuck did I think this was a good idea? It's fine. We should get tea to class. And maybe tea talk about ditch this later? Midoriya stuttered out. All Hitoshi could do was nod, taken aback by the reaction. Particularly the lack of a negative reaction. Hitoshi and Midoriya left the rooftop around the same time, though Hitoshi had to go to his locker first whereas it seemed Izuku didn't. When Hitoshi got to the classroom the teacher wasn't there yet. A blessing, however small it may be. He sat down in his seat, though it was more awkward next to Midoriya now. The teacher finally arrived, though Hitoshi could not for the life of him remember his name. All he knew was this was one of the teachers that just flat out ignored him. He could do nothing but stare into space the whole lesson and the teacher would not give a fuck. So of course that is what he did. Hitoshi zoned back in just as the bell rang. He looked over to Midoriya only to see him talking to Yokoyama. I should just leave, Hitoshi thought to himself, grabbing his bag and leaving the room. He left quickly, practically running from the school, zigzagging through alleyways. As soon as the bell went, Yokoyama ran up to Izuku's desk. Izuku tried to politely leave, wanting to talk to Shinso, but Yokoyama just kept talking. Izuku could hear Shinso moving behind him before seeing him leave. Izuku was finally able to make up some excuse to leave, but by that point it was too late. Shinso was nowhere in sight. Frowning, Izuku went into the internet. The group chat had a bunch of notifications which Izuku would check later. He had another school's firewall to jump over. He looked up Naba Middle School. It took a minute to find the firewall, and when he did he was disappointed. Izuku knew he was short, and that unfortunately translated into the internet. But for him to be able to easily step over the firewall was just sad. Now he had access to every document uploaded to the school's secure database. This included camera footage. This then also included student profiles. According to Shinso's profile, he joined the school at the start of the year. So Izuku went to the camera footage and looked at the first few days for Shinso. He started crying, watching as Shinso was forced to tell the class his quirk. During that day's lunch, Shinso was cornered by Yokoyama, Kanai, and Kitahara. Izuku had a decision to make. Whether to stay friends with Yokoyama or to leave them and befriend Shinso. It should be a simple decision. Izuku should befriend Shinso. He had tried so hard to leave Aldera because of the bullying. Befriending Shinso would lead to that happening all over again. Izuku Siga. He would make a decision after talking to Shinso more. Although deep down he already knew what he'd choose. Even if Shinso didn't want him to. Izuku couldn't let someone be alone if he can help. Chat name. The pros and cons. Drugs. At Blur, how doing something a normal person should do go? Blur. First off, I'm offended. Second off, yes. Drugs. That is not an answer. Yes it is. Drugs. It's a yes or no question. Covet. Are you fucking serious? Drugs. If. Or. See, it is an answer. Drugs. Not when it comes to you. Or. You are a hypocrite. Drugs. Thanks for pointing out the obvious face without ma. Or. I hate you. Covet. I agree. Drugs. If. But also show. Covet. Drugs has been muted for 1 hour. Or. F. Cockatoo. I am locking all the doors and windows around me. I feel unsafe. Or. Cockatoo. Did you read the chat from earlier? Or. Cockatoo. You should scroll up. Ah shit, Nem's been muted again. Eve got to hide. Cockatoo. Right? I fear for my life if I hide. But I also fear for my life if I don't. It's a hard decision. Or. Cockatoo. Or. Consider. Means I don't have to make a decision. Cockatoo. What decision? Or. Wouldn't you like to know whether boy? Cockatoo. Covet. I am so disappointed. Cockatoo. Is this one of those weird references you make? That apparently Blur also knows? Covet. I thought you were bae. Turns out you're just fam. Cockatoo has been muted for 1 hour. Or. Makes sense. No vining, no speaking privileges. Covet. Exactly. Anyway, how is talking to people? Or. Betrayal. Covet. Oh no. Anyway. Or. I don't know whether to feel betrayed now or not. On one hand you betrayed me. On the other hand you memed. Covet. Sounds like a you problem. Or. I hate you. Covet. The feeling is mutual. Or. Good to know. Imma scroll up and see what the heck Cockatoo was talking about. Covet. Consider. No. Or. Consider. I can and I will. Blur has been muted for 1 hour. Show you know he can still see the chat, right? Covet. Yes, but at least I don't have to deal with him for an hour. Blur has been unmuted. Or. You were saying? Covet. What the actual fuck? Or. What were you expecting when you muted me, a hacker? Covet. Not that apparently. Or. That much was obvious. I am exhausted from today, so I will cause chaos. Covet. What are you about to do? Or. This. Drugs has been unmuted. Cockatoo has been unmuted. Drugs. Show how dare you am. Udemy. Cockatoo. I was betrayed. By my own husband. Covet. Blur, what have you done? Or. The best decision ever. Covet. I will find you. And I will kill you. Or. Sounds fun. Good luck. Cockatoo. No show, don't hurt the small child. Or. See, you can't hurt me. I am a small. Covet. Small enough to be kicked into the sun? Or. Might be a mistake to say I am small. Covet. You don't say. Drugs. Show, you can't kill him. Covet. And why not? Wait. I just realized I don't care. Drugs has been muted for 1 hour. Drugs has been unmuted. Covet. God fucking damn it. Drugs. Blur, you are amazing. Drugs has been muted for 1 hour. Drugs has been unmuted. Or. I am powerful. Covet. Don't fuck with me. I have the power of God and anime on my side. Drugs. What the fuck? Cockatoo. I never imagined show saying anything remotely like that. Or. Banish the non-believers. Drugs has been muted for 1 hour. Cockatoo has been muted for 1 hour. Covet. Don't you fucking dare unmute them. Or. After what they just did. No. Covet. Glad we can agree on that. It seemed that every time Izuku even attempted to talk to Shinso, Yokoyama or his friends would find a way to intervene. Arriving before school? They are already there. During lunch? They never let him leave without the rest of them. After school? They would talk to him as they packed up. Even if they weren't always near them, Shinso seemed to be avoiding him. Izuku didn't know whether that was because of Yokoyama and his friends or because Shinso used his quirk on him. Or worse, what if Shinso thought he was only trying to be his friend to betray him? Izuku shook his head. He can't be thinking like that if he wants to make any progress. The only idea he had left was to find out where Shinso lived. Maybe, just maybe then, he would be able to finally talk to him. It wasn't his best idea, far from it. Internet stalking a potential friend? Horrible idea. It might even make the whole friend-making harder. But there was no other way. Even if he wasn't held back every day by his friends, following Shinso home was creepy. Finding out where he lived was also creepy, but at the very least he could hide that. All he needed to do was pretend he was shopping at a nearby store, if there were any close enough. Or he could say he was visiting a relative. Or going to a nearby park. Not his best excuses, but they will have to do. Izuku entered the internet, the hero chat looming in the background. Taunting him. Somewhat anyway. Izuku's happy he fell into that chat. He's happy he hadn't left. But he now had to be careful with what he said because for some stupid reason it picked up almost everything he said and sent it. The number of awkward situations that have come from it is embarrassingly high. He looked through the school student files. There were more students there than he thought were at the school. Looking closer showed they were some of the previous year's students. These should have been moved to previous year's students' files instead of current year's. Izuku couldn't focus on that right now. He had a potential friend's file to find. It was harder to find than it should have been. He'll have to change that later. Turned out Shinso didn't live all too far from him. Supposedly anyway. The file said he was in the foster system, which it probably shouldn't. And the address was last updated 2 years ago. Just to be safe, Izuku decides to hack into the police database. It wasn't too hard, he'd already done it before. Although they had changed some of their security since last time. Izuku found Shinso's file and it had a different address just like he thought it would. Izuku unfortunately knew how the system was for those with villainous quirks. He'd done his research on the system when his mum had left. This house was a little further away, but still not too far. Then an idea struck Izuku. This was the same police department, not a cop, worked at. Izuku only knew that because he had complained about a fellow coworker, forgetting to exclude the name. All Izuku had to do now was look and see which people were on the blur case. Then look through their computer and see if the chat was on there. Tsukauchi. That was the name of not a cop. This was going to be fun. Izuku focused on the laptop itself and opened a notepad. He wishes he could see Tsukauchi's face. Hiya, blur. Izuku only had to wait a few moments before he got a response. What are you doing? Nothing, blur. Just why? I was bored, blur. You don't have to keep signing off. Yes, but actually no. What does that even mean? I am offended. But don't act innocent. I have no idea what you're saying. You can't gaslight girl boss gatekeep your way out of this. Gaslight? Girl boss? Gatekeep? You are doing it again. What am I doing? Everything. I need to get back to work. Really sad face. Are you paid by the hour? Fine, you can go back to your stupid job, Tsukauchi. Thank you. How do you know my name? I found it while looking for your laptop. How did you find my laptop? You mentioned an annoying coworker, so from that. Why am I not surprised? Because I'm amazing like that. Anyway, have fun at work. I won't. It really was as fun as Izuku thought it would be. Now Izuku had to focus. He knows where Shinso lives. He knows what he needs to talk about. All he needs to do was actually talk to him. Izuku was nervous. To be fair, he was almost always nervous. But that's besides the point. He had all he needed to talk to Shinso. Everything but confidence. How was he meant to gain confidence? He had no fucking clue. Izuku could ask the group chat. But as far as he knew, only one of them would understand his troubles. And he needed a bit more than one person's advice. Guesses always. He had no idea what the fuck to do now. If he knew more people. If joining a random group chat worked out the first time. It could work again. Izuku went into the internet and started walking around. The hero group chat loomed in the background as always. Izuku looked at it for a moment. If this idea didn't work out, he'd ask that group chat. He turned away. Izuku was looking up at a weird-looking website when he tripped. And fell into another group chat. Chat name, League of Villains. Unknown user has entered the chat. Shigaraki. WTF? Unknown user. How interesting. Shigaraki. Who the fuck are you? Unknown user. I honestly don't know how to answer. Shigaraki. By saying you are fucking name. Unknown user. Yeah, obviously. Just don't know which name to use. Shigaraki. What the fuck does they even mean? Unknown user. Basically whether to use my real name or the alias I have. And honestly, I'm leaning towards alias because the chat title is a little sketch. And stupid. Shigaraki. What the fuck did you say? Unknown user. I said it was stupid. Because it is. If you're really villains, it's a bad idea to put the word villain in the chat title. Shigaraki. Unknown user. Let me fix it. Chat name changed from League of Villains to League of No Dads. Unknown user. That seems to be the vibe. Kurogiri. Shigaraki, what has Sensei said about adding people into the chat? Shigaraki. TD isn't my far. He added himself. Unknown user. Yeah, I'm special like that. Kurogiri. If that is the case, I will need you to leave. Unknown user. Nah, I'm good. Kurogiri. I will have to remove you myself then. Kurogiri has kicked unknown user from the chat. Unknown user has entered the chat. Unknown user. I'm pretty hard to get rid of. Kurogiri. I see. Kurogiri has kicked unknown user from the chat. Unknown user has entered the chat. Unknown user. I just told you. Shigaraki. Kurogiri. I must inform Sensei of this. AFO has kicked unknown user from the chat. Unknown user has entered the chat. Unknown user. I keep telling you people. But no one listens. For you. Unknown user. I'm Blur. Shigaraki. Like the Transformer character? Unknown user. Exactly like the Transformer character. You are cultured. Everyone always thinks I named myself that because I'm a good hacker. Shigaraki. I wasn't expecting that. Unknown user. I've got to change the names. I'm assuming those are your real names/villain names and that is not the vibe. Unknown user has changed their name to Teenage Dirtbag. Teenage Dirtbag. I have decided I'm changing everyone's name to song names. I need information to know what song for what person. Shigaraki. Teenage Dirtbag. I just need a quirk aspect or personality thing. Shigaraki. Teenage Dirtbag. Thank you. Teenage Dirtbag has changed Shigaraki's name to State of Slow Decay. State of Slow Decay. That works. Teenage Dirtbag. It's a little long though. Teenage Dirtbag has changed State of Slow Decay's name to Slow Decay. Teenage Dirtbag. Much better. Who's next? Slow Decay. Do Kurogiri next. Teenage Dirtbag. Okay, quirk aspect or personality. Kurogiri. I'm not allowed to tell you either. Teenage Dirtbag. I've got an idea though. Teenage Dirtbag has changed Kurogiri's name to Unsainted. Slow Decay. Wait a minute, I know that song. Teenage Dirtbag. Really? Slow Decay. Obviously. Teenage Dirtbag. You have immediately become 10x cooler. Slow Decay. Thanks. Teenage Dirtbag. Okay, all I have to do is AFO's name change. And based off the vibe I'm getting, I have an idea. Teenage Dirtbag has changed AFO's name to the Chapeltown Rag. Teenage Dirtbag. It's a little long, but from what I can tell he doesn't text much or get it a lot. Slow Decay. How did you even find this chat in the first place though? Teenage Dirtbag. Funny story. I accidentally joined and have decided I'm staying here now. Slow Decay. Teenage Dirtbag. By being Sparkles myself Sparkles. Slow Decay. Teenage Dirtbag. Anyway, I was somewhat planning on joining a random chat because I need advice. Slow Decay. And you thought joining a chat full of strangers would help? Teenage Dirtbag. Yep. It worked out last time. Because correlation definitely equals causation. 100%. Much logic. Slow Decay. You talk a lot. Teenage Dirtbag. It's one of my charms. Anyway, how do I talk to people? Slow Decay. You joined a group chat full of strangers. Teenage Dirtbag. Slow Decay. To ask for advice. Teenage Dirtbag. Slow Decay. About how to talk to people. Teenage Dirtbag. Ding ding ding, correct. Slow Decay. That makes no sense. You are literally talking to me. Person. Teenage Dirtbag. Yes, your point? Slow Decay. Yet you can't talk to people. Teenage Dirtbag. I don't understand what you're not getting. Slow Decay. You are talking to a person right now. Teenage Dirtbag. No, I'm a person right now. Slow Decay. How the fuck did you do that? Chat name, League of No Dads. Teenage Dirtbag. I'm just like that. Slow Decay. Teenage Dirtbag. Slow Decay. Like that explains anything. Teenage Dirtbag. I mean, I think it does. Hacker. I do heckin' cool stuff. Slow Decay. Hackers are annoying. Teenage Dirtbag. I understand when you're trying to game, but I'm not fey at bad. Slow decay. What games do you play? Teenage Dietbay. Rusht. Sims 4. Clash of Clans. My Singing Monsters. Stardew Valley. Slow decay. Which Stardew character is your favorite? Teenage Dietbay. Linus. He's a nice dude. What about you? Slow decay. Krobus. Teenage Dietbay. Unsainted. May I remind you, Shigaraki, that this chat is meant for planning only? Teenage Dietbay. No, you may not remind him. Unsainted. I was not talking to you. Teenage Dietbay. I like talking. Unsainted. I am aware of that. Teenage Dietbay. You're boring. Slow decay. Jeez. Teenage Dietbay. Not the vibe. Unsainted has been muted for 1 hour. Slow decay. Probably not the best idea. Teenage Dietbay. Meh, that's future me's problem. Anyway, so can you answer my question on how to talk to people? Slow decay. Teenage Dietbay. Why? Slow decay. Because I don't know how the fuck to talk to people. Teenage Dietbay. You know, if I had a nickel for every time I joined a chat with someone who didn't know how to talk to people, I'd have 2 nickels. It's not a lot, but it's weird it's happened twice. Slow decay. Did you just reference Phineas and Ferb at me? Teenage Dietbay. Yes, I did. Well, I guess I gotta force some more people to let me into their chats. Slow decay. Are you seriously gonna talk to more people to figure out how to talk to people? Teenage Dietbay. We've been over this. Slow decay. I don't think I'll ever get used to that. Teenage Dietbay. Too bad you've got to. Izuku now had 2 group chats looming in the internet. And he was about to have a 3rd. He just had to find one. Now though, was he going to look for one or just walk until he trips again? On one hand, it somewhat worked out when he just tripped. On the other hand, when he just tripped into chats, the people there couldn't help him talk to people. Or he could try finding a random person and hope it works out. Each time he's joined a group chat, there are people like him. Maybe, just maybe, if he talked to just one person, he'd actually find an answer. So Izuku decided that was what he was going to do. Nothing could go wrong, right? Chat name, new chat. Unknown user has joined. Unknown user has joined. Unknown user. Unknown user. You are probably wondering why I've created the chat. Unknown user. A little yeah. Who even are you? Unknown user. I'm Blur. Or you. Unknown user. So you added me into a chat even though you don't know who I am? Unknown user. Yep. Unknown user. That makes sense. Unknown user. Also, before you say your name, you can give a fake name / alias like I did. Unknown user has changed their name to Blur. Blur. Way less confusing now. Unknown user. Are you a villain? Blur. Just a hacker. Unknown user. Unknown user has changed their name to Hatsume. Blur. Wait a minute. Hatsume as in the company that makes support gear? Hatsume. Yep. I'm the future Blur. I am not the future CEO of anything. I feel outclasses here. Hatsume. That's weird. Blur. What? That I won't be a so? Hatsume. No, that's normal for most people. My baby can't track your location. Blur. I'm sorry, you're what? Chat name, new chat. Hatsume. My baby. Blur. You have a child? Hatsume. No, of course not. Blur. Then what do you mean, your baby? Hatsume. Oh yeah, you don't know. I call my inventions my babies. Blur. That makes so much more sense now. I was so confused. Hatsume. Yeah, that checks out. Anyway, so why can't my baby track you? Blur. It's because. Hatsume. Now that makes sense. Blur. Wow, you are one of the first people not confused by that. Hatsume. I could do it too, I just don't wanna right now. Blur. Anyway, back to the reason I made this chat. I have a question. How do you talk to people? Hatsume. Can't help you too much with that. How'd either. Blur. This is the 3rd time that's happened. Hatsume. Or well, how to talk to people normally. I have a question for you. Blur. Yeah. Hatsume. How would you feel helping me test out some of my babies? There is only a 50% chance they will explode when tested. Blur. I like those odds. I'm in. Hatsume. Perfect. When are you free? Blur. Right now, I guess? Hatsume. How long will it take for you to get to Takoba Municipal Beach? Blur. Prob half an hour or so. That's where we're testing them out? Hatsume. Yep. And I'll even pay you in support gear. Heck yeah. Izuku was not expecting to talk to a random person and get support gear out of it. He wasn't complaining though. He was a little frustrated. He still didn't know how the fuck to talk to Shinso. He was almost at the beach when a thought popped into his head. He should probably change his name in his and Hatsume's chat after this. Just in case. He doubts anyone who knows him as Blur would ever see that chat. Izuku, while lost in thought, tripped and fell face first into the sand. Not his favorite thing to do. Sitting up, Izuku looked around. There was a bunch of trash. He knew there would be, the beach was infamous for it, but he hadn't realized how bad it was. Izuku was lucky he had only fallen onto sand, the beach was that packed with trash. After a minute of looking around, Izuku noticed a person with pink hair. They were holding what looked to be support equipment. Izuku started heading towards who he assumed was Hatsume. About halfway to them, they turned around. Their eyes had crosshairs where the pupils would be. Their quirk has to have something to do with their eyes. Maybe it's similar to scopes on guns? I'm assuming you're Blur? Izuku's train of thought was broken by the voice. You're Hatsume, yeah? Hatsume nodded. Izuku internally sighed in relief. You're much shorter than I thought. And younger. I wasn't expecting someone my age. I was half expecting a creepy adult. Gimme a moment to put a few things away. Hatsume pulled what Izuku could only assume was a knife of some kind from thin air before carefully putting it away in her backpack. I was not expecting that. Izuku had decided then that he was in fact thankful for his lack of tallness. Well, I only brought the modified knife in case I had to defend myself. The other stuff I bought was to distract so I could run away. Mainly because I have no idea who you are. A few more things were put back into the bag. Why did you ask me to test out your babies then? Well, if you were a creep I'd know to block you. That, and I don't know many people who'd be a guinea pig, so I figured you could. Anyway, which baby should I test out first? The jetpack or the flamethrower? Hatsume looked between the two support gear. Probably whichever one you think will explode the least. Izuku suggested. Hatsume laughed. Chat name. The pros and cons. At Blur, I know this is your fault. Blur. What? I haven't done anything. To you at least. I have a sudden headache and I know it has to be something to do with you. Blur. That doesn't make any sense. And don't you always have a headache? I don't always have a headache. Blur. Sure, we'll go with that. I just know it's because of you. What have you been doing recently? Blur. Texting? Blur. Tell me what you've done now. Blur. Visit. This chat hasn't been helpful answering my question on how to talk to people. So I asked some other people. Drugs. How does that even work? Blur. Shut him telling a story. Drugs has been mut-ed for 1 hour. Continue. Blur. Thank you. Anyway, because it somewhat worked joining this random chat, by accident. I decided to join another chat. Of course you did. Blur. Look, it wasn't the worst idea. Sure it wasn't. Cockatoo. Why do I hear Nem screaming? And why is it getting classification? Blur. Really? It's still story time. Cockatoo has been muted for 1 hour. Who did you start talking to? Blur. Some probably gamers. So I obviously changed the group chat name and each person's name because I can. Yes, because that's what a normal person would do. Blur. We already know I'm not normal. Anyway, they were no help. So you left the chat after? Blur. Funny story. Why am I not surprised? Blur. Anyway. I then decided group chats didn't work all too great. So you decided to what? Blur. I decided to start talking to a random person in a private chat. Blur. Group chats didn't work, so private chats should. Keep up, old man. I'm not old. Blur. You're older than me, therefore you are old. Logic. What happened with the person you decided to torture? Stop muting me, fuckers. Blur. Never. Speed has been muted for 1 hour. Blur. Also, I didn't torture them. You talked to them, yes? Blur. Yes? So you did torture them. Blur. How dare you? I am very offended. I will figure out who you are and take your coffee away. I fucking dare you. Not a cop. Blur. Do not even attempt to do that. Do you have a death wish? Blur. Not a cop. Wait, no. Blur. Preemptive muting. Not a cop has been muted for 1 hour. Covet. Fit. Blur. So good news on the person I didn't torture. I have a new friend now. Covet. I don't know whether I'm happy or I want to bang my head against the wall. Blur. Why would you want to bang your head against the wall? Covet. Either you made friends with someone who will make you calm down more, or you made friends with someone who will make you even worse. Blur. Yeah. Fit. Blur. Covet. I have a feeling you'll get worse. Blur. Much offended. Chat name, UA staff. Majima. Izawa. I think I finally understand what you mean. Izawa. What? Majima. I have a feeling that I'll be getting a problem child next year. Izawa. I'm surprised you've made it this far without one. Good luck. Majima. Do you have any tips? Any idea how to make them less of a problem? Izawa. Yamada. Come on, show. Be nice. Izawa. Kiyama. I'll stop pointing out every time you're nice to Blur. Or every time you and Blur seem to be the same person. Izawa. But no. Majima. I'll buy you your favorite expensive coffee beans for the next year. Yamada. Your bank account. Kiyama. Oh, Majima is serious about wanting those tips. Izawa. Maybe. Nemuri would say she was a level-headed person. Everyone who actually knew her would disagree, but that was besides the point. She was having a good time bullying texting people in the group chat. And she obviously shouldn't have been muted. For the millionth time. If she weren't a pro-hero, this would be her villain origin story. Sue her, she's a drama queen at heart. And this drama queen won't stop until she has her moment. Her first target would be Hisashi. More specifically his phone. His office was always unlocked. Like a fool. Her next target is always Tensei. He may be fast, it may be his quirk, but Nemuri was stubborn. Stubbornness combined with the determination of a drama queen meant she was unstoppable. Lastly, if that phone was muted, she'd go after Naomasa. He was normally at work around now, and he had no way to escape. Unless he was called to interrogate someone. In which Nemuri would hide in his office until he had to return. It was a foolproof plan. Hisashi hated paperwork. He knew it was necessary. It'd be a problem if it weren't. But he still did not like it whatsoever. He could hear notifications from the group chat. But if he looked at it now, the paperwork would be forgotten and he'd be really sad when he remembered he hadn't finished it. To distract himself from the group chat, Hisashi decided to put some music on. Though he felt like trying something new. He could try out the band Blur mentioned a while ago. Apocalyptica. Sounded interesting. Hisashi opened up HeroTube and searched the name. He wasn't sure which song to listen to first. Until he recognized a song name. Turned out the band had some covers of classical music. He knew of Hall of the Mountain King, so he played that song. He was about halfway through the song when he heard it. Nemuri screaming. His blood went cold. It wasn't often she screamed. It was rare the screams were something actually bad. Hisashi checked the group chat, asking what had happened. Before he could finish typing, Nemuri burst through his door and stole his phone off him. Typing aggressively. It stopped soon after. Hisashi assumed it stopped from Nemuri getting him muted. Nemuri threw the phone back to Hisashi and ran off. Checking the chat properly showed that Nemuri was, in fact, muted. For interrupting story time? According to Blur. Just as Hisashi was about to read the chat to figure out what story time was in reference to, he got an email asking about the paperwork. Just his luck. Today was Tensei's day off. Which meant he had to do everything else. Like buying groceries. Most people it wouldn't take too long. But it took forever for Tensei. Because he was a picky eater but still had to buy enough different things or he wouldn't eat it all. Tensei also had a few new recipes he wanted to try out. Which meant figuring out where in the shops each ingredient was. Then, obviously, comparing brands on both their prices and on how ethical they were. All while going through a list, in which he has to go through the same aisle over and over again because he had no idea so many ingredients were in that aisle. Suffice to say, it took a while. Checking the list on his phone, and finding out he had grabbed everything, Tensei decided to buy some chocolate for himself. He just had to decide which chocolate to get. Just as he finally made a choice, he realized he should probably get Tenya some. So he pulled his phone out to ask his brother what chocolate he wanted. Before he could even begin typing the text, his phone was ripped out of his hands. Tensei looked towards whoever stole his phone to have a polite chat to them. It was just Nemuri. Tensei knew right away why she had stolen his phone, confirmed by how fast she was typing. Nemuri must have been muted from the chat. Tensei sighed, realizing he'd then be muted thanks to her. Nemuri let out a groan of frustration before tossing the phone back to him and running away. Naomasa checked the chat out. Nemuri had been muted. So had Hisashi and Tensei, thanks to Nemuri stealing their phones. He sighed. The one time he actually wanted to be busy somewhere, so that he wouldn't have his phone stolen off him, was the one time all he needed to do was paperwork. Unless an emergency in which his quirk would be helpful appeared, he was stuck at his desk. He couldn't even try to lock the doors and windows. He knew it'd do nothing to stop her. Naomasa was pulled out of those thoughts when he saw Blur threatening to take Shuta's coffee away. He immediately intervened, trying to talk some sense into Blur. That backfired though, which he should have expected with how concerning Blur was at times. Most of the time really. His talking in the chat had him preemptively muted. If he was lucky, Nemuri would see that and not bother coming all the way. Naomasa realized he had spoken, thought, too soon when his door was kicked open by a very annoyed and exhausted Nemuri. I've already been dash. Naomasa was cut off by Nemuri taking his phone off him. Fuck. Today was the day. Izuku was going to talk to Shinso. He had no idea how, but if he kept on avoiding it, he would never do it. He had a basic outline on what to do. Step 1. Find Shinso. Step 3. Friends? Izuku hit his head against the wall. He now understood coffee better. Hitting your head against the wall helps. All he had to do was find Shinso and talk. He knew around where Shinso should be. But Shinso was avoiding him at school, so there was the chance Shinso would see him first and Izuku would do nothing but stand around all day. Though Izuku could just keep going there until they talk. But that might also backfire and make Shinso avoid Izuku even more. Being a teenager was too much work and Izuku was not a fan. Chat name. The pros and cons. Blur. Wish me luck. Drugs. But. Blur. I'm doing what you would call normal human things. Drugs. Are you finally talking to people? Blur. Covet. Pros. Blur. Read. I hate being a teenager. Covet. It doesn't get much better. Cockatoo. See. At Blur it might not be the best right now, but it will be better when you're older. Blur. Consider. Coffee knows vines, therefore knows more. Cockatoo. Sad face. Blur. I'm sorry, but also coffee is a vibe. Covet. I need bleach for my eyes. Cockatoo. Shona. Blur. Choice. Covet. Why you like this Blur? Blur. Oh hi, thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage. Cockatoo. No you are not. Blur. What up? I'm Jared. I'm 19. And I never fucking learned how to read. Drugs. Do you high? Blur. Not right now. Drugs. That implies you have been. Blur. No off-topic questions. Because I said so. That is an off-topic question. You have been stopped. Covet. Can I get a waffle? Blur. Can I please get a waffle? Drugs. Sure? Blur. This bitch empty. The drugs has been muted for 1 hour. Cockatoo. Why did you do that? Blur. The vibe was ruined. So she had to go. Covet. Makes sense. Cockatoo. Frisch avocado? Did I do that right? Blur. So close. Yet so far. Covet. He's trying. Blur. You can stay unmuted for now. Cockatoo. For now? Blur. Well, drugs will probably be trying to find you and your phone. And when that happens, I'll have to mute you. Cockatoo. What do you mean when? I can fend her off. Blur. Sure you can. Cockatoo. Ruddoy caves still Jafe Callies Fcade slowed Jafe case. Fuck you guys. Blur. That's what I meant by when. Cockatoo has been muted for 1 hour. Blur. Anyway, I should probably go now and actually talk to the person before I decide I can do it another day. Covet. Fit. Good luck. Blur. Thank you. I would unmute those two just for the good luck stuff, but also. Covet. It took a while to get near Shinso's house. Especially since Izuku had to walk. He could have maybe taken the bus, but that left room for him passing Shinso without even knowing. And Izuku was a massive overthinker and couldn't stand the thought of completely missing him. Izuku found the street Shinso lived on and went towards the convenience store nearby. He'd look around, maybe buy a few things, then leave and try to find Shinso if he wasn't in the store. While he was deciding which chocolate bars to buy, a couple rounded the corner. Izuku tried his best to ignore their conversation, but years of bullying made that impossible. I say we throw him out. He's what, 14? That's close enough, yeah? Izuku glanced toward the voice. It was a woman with light brown hair. She looked to be a bit taller than Izuku. To be fair, everyone looked a bit taller than him. What if he went to the police? What about the social worker when she comes to visit? The second voice came from a man. He was taller than the woman, with a darker brown hair color, though he was starting to bald. I doubt he'd go to the police. Even then, why would they believe him over us? His quirk is villainous. I'd be surprised if they even let him walk in to begin with. The woman picked up a box of chocolate, turning it around to look at the nutritional panel. And we both know the social worker doesn't give a fuck. She only checks in because she's getting paid to. She's never asked to see him before, why would she now? Izuku didn't like the sound of that. He needed to find out who they were fostering to save them. He started looking through the internet based on their appearance. He found their names quite quickly. The woman was Hatsume Mei and the man was Hidnori Taguchi. They married in their early 20s but seemed to never have any biological children. Only fostered. Had been fostering all through their 30s. Currently in their early 40s. They only fostered one child at a time. Had a good track record, though that didn't match what they were saying now. Skilled at lying right at the social workers' faces. Disgusting. Izuku kept looking to see who they were currently fostering. Finally he found the name. Hitoshi Shinso. It was then that Izuku knew he had to help. And he knew exactly who to ask. Izuku kept listening to Shinso's foster parents. They planned to kick him out today. Even if Izuku told Tsukauchi now it'd be impossible to get Shinso into a new foster home that would be safe. He internally sighed. He hated having to make decisions. Either he told Tsukauchi and risked Shinso being put into a worse foster home for the time being. Or Izuku could ask Shinso if he wanted to stay at his home until he went to a new, better, safe foster home. But Shinso might say no, especially since they've barely talked. Their only interaction being neutral at best. Shinso's foster parents left the aisle. Izuku stood up, watching as they went towards the checkout. He'd have to make the decision now and fast. Izuku paid for the chocolate he'd grabbed before slowly following the Taguchis. They kept talking about kicking Shinso out. The conversation moving on to what they hoped their next foster kid would be like. Using his quirk, Izuku recorded everything he saw and heard from them. Hopefully this would be enough to prevent them from fostering ever again. Once they got to their house, Izuku hid behind a bush. Not the best idea. Not the worst idea either. It took a few minutes of waiting before the door opened again. This time with a blank-faced Shinso carrying 2 bags. Hatsume Taguchi yelling at him to never come back. Whereas Hidnori Taguchi was nowhere to be seen. Once the door slammed shut, Izuku stopped recording. If this wasn't enough to save Shinso and all future foster children, then nothing would be. Izuku silently stepped back onto the path, pretending he'd been walking down the path regardless. He looked towards Shinso, who was just standing there staring at the ground. Hey Shinsu. Izuku said, trying to get his attention. It worked a little too well as Shinso flinched at the sound. Quick Izuku think. Over heard what happened. Do you want to stay at mine for now? Shinso stared at Izuku as though he had grown a second head. I know we don't know each other that well but, well? Izuku trailed off, unsure on what to say next. What could he say? Why you don't have to if it makes you uncomfortable? Are you sure? Shinso asked, obviously not sure how to respond to Izuku. Wouldn't your parents care? A sad smile spread across Izuku's face. W wouldn't know. There was a part of Izuku which wanted to tell Shinso. There was the other part that feared Shinso would turn on him later, using such information against him. Hitoshi hadn't expected the Taguchis to kick him out, not yet at least. He knew they hated him, though every foster home had. They never showed wanting him gone more than any other home had. Hitoshi had to pack quickly, though that wasn't hard with the few things he owned. Once he was out the door he was yelled at to stay away from their house. And to not even try to go to the police. As if they would actually listen to him. Hitoshi spaced out once the door slammed shut. He had nowhere to go, no one to trust. He had no idea what to do now. Shinsu. A somewhat familiar voice said, startling Hitoshi so much he flinched. He looked towards the voice to see Midoriya. Over heard what happened. Do you want to stay at mine for now? He didn't know how to feel about that. Hitoshi knew Midoriya was different. He wasn't bullying him. But not bullying someone and offering them a place to stay were pretty different. That was another thing. Midoriya knew he was now homeless. Someone at his school knew he was homeless. That was the last thing he wanted. But again, it was Midoriya, someone who seemed at least decent. I know we don't know each other that well, but, Midoriya looked down at his feet. Why you don't have to if it makes you uncomfortable? Hitoshi thought for a moment. On one hand he could say no, but he'd have to figure out where to go before it got dark. On the other hand he could say yes, taking the risk that Midoriya was actually different from his classmates. Are you sure? If Midoriya was like the rest, at least he'd know now. Wouldn't your parents care? Hitoshi watched a sad smile spread across Midoriya's face. W wouldn't know. That hit Hitoshi hard for some reason. But it also helped him make up his mind. Sure. Izuku had no idea how he'd convinced Shinso to come to his place. But he did. Shinso was in the living room at this very moment watching something on the TV. He'd told Shinso that he'd be doing some work in his room for a little. He gave Shinso his phone number if he needed him, explaining he'd be using his quirk. Shinso, though he looked a bit confused, nodded before going back to focus on the TV. Izuku made a private chat between him and Tsukauchi, figuring that'd be easier than finding his work laptop. Chat name, new chat. Blur. Tsukauchi, I need your help. Not a cop. Blur? What do you need help with? Blur. I saw some foster parents kick their foster child out. And told said child not to go to the police about it. So I figured I could instead. Not a cop. How much information do you have on them? Blur. I overheard them talking about it at a convenience store and followed them recording. I also recorded them kicking the child out. Not a cop. Send those over ASAP. Do you know where the kid is? Blur. Somewhat. A kid from their school offered to take him to their apartment. Friend, I assume. Not a cop. Do you know what school the kid goes to? Blur. Nabu Middle School. I've emailed you the video. Not a cop. I'm not even gonna ask how you know my work email. Blur. Chat name. The pros and cons. Not a cop. I need to be reminded why murder isn't the best idea. Drugs. Oh shit, now is mad. Don't commit murder BC, it's illegal? Not a cop. Not good enough. Cockatoo. Good. They don't have good coffee in prison. Not a cop. Blur. It's only illegal if you get caught though. Cockatoo. Blur, that is not how that works whatsoever. Blur. Consider. If you have a good enough reason, Nezu could just be Nezu and stop you from getting caught. Almighty leader. Drugs. Sparkles, fear sparkles. Not a cop. Tempting. Cockatoo. Blur. Tsukauchi, yes. Cockatoo. Wait, since when did you know his name? Blur. Since I hacked into the police database. You didn't hear that from me though. Drugs. But you just said. What? Blur. No, you didn't hear it from me. What do you mean? Blur. You saw a text from me. Unless you can hear the words from the text in my voice, you didn't it? Covet. I hate you so much. Blur. It's opposite day. Covet. Blur. Drugs. Wait, not a cop, why did you want to commit murder? Not a cop. Because some people are absolute scum of the earth. Blur. Is it the thing I told you about? Not a cop. I'm happy you've handed it over to the police. But God, do I hate people. Blur. But your username says you're not a cop. Drugs. Have you lost the few brain cells you had? Blur. Well, that's just plain rude. I was lighting up the mood, thank you very much. I am half tempted to find out who you really are to enact my revenge. Drugs. You can't do that. Blur. And I will. I found Tsukauchi. I can find you. That's not concerning at all. Blur. Sarcasm is Coffee's job. Thanks. Because I totally needed that. Blur. He is the king of sarcasm. Whereas you are merely a peasant. Now you're being rude. And that's pretty rude. You don't say. Cockatoo. Are we going to ignore that Blur is the reason now wants to commit murder? Blur. No, I'm not the reason Tsukauchi wants to commit murder. I just gave him information of horrible people and they make him want to commit murder. There's a difference. Fairly sure anyway. Drugs. What was it about anyway? Or, basically I was at shops. Scum talks about kicking their foster child out. Followed. They did. I recorded it all. And now, Tsukauchi wants to commit murder. Pretty simple. Drugs. Do you know where the child went? Or, saw what I assume was one of their friends offering to let the kid stay over for a while. Cockatoo. Hope that kid asked their parents first. That'd be real awkward to explain after. Hi Eve decided my friend you may or may not have met is staying here for an indefinite amount of time. Hope that's fine. Oh, that's funny. Or, deleted message. Drugs. Wait, what was that? Fuck, I didn't read it in time. Almighty leader. Smiley face. Almighty leader has logged off. Or, that's great. Covet. Should have thought before you sent it. Or, you read it too? Covet. But it was obviously something you didn't want us to read. Or, drugs. What did I say about you saying yes? Or, you're being a hypocrite and you know it. Drugs. Or, that I can't use yes, which is stupid because you do. Drugs. I am an adult, whereas you are not. Suck it. Or, bullying a child. How could you? Drugs. Easily. Cockatoo. How could you? The poor baby. Or, I am the poor baby. And I say banish the non-believer. Drugs has been muted for 1 hour. Cockatoo. Everyone fucking scatter. Not a cop. Whatever deity is out there. Please give me only interrogations for the next hour. Covet. Sounds like a skill issue. Or, read. Neither of you two have your phones stolen off. You guys have nothing to worry about. Therefore no talking privileges. Coffee has been muted for 1 hour. Blur has been muted for 1 hour. Cockatoo. What have you done? I fear for my life. Blur has been unmuted. Or, you should. Coffee has been unmuted. Before you say anything show. I'd like to start my 3-part apology. Covet. You have 10 seconds before I ping your location to Nem. If she doesn't find you, I will. Or, sounds like a threat. Covet. I don't make threats. I make promises. Or, good to know. Cockatoo. 10 I would strongly recommend you run. Like right now. Coffee has logged off. Shit. Or, dude. Not helping. Cockatoo. At least I don't have to hide from Nem. For now anyway. Betrayal. Cockatoo. Your sacrifice won't be in vain. At not a cop help me. Not a cop. Would you look at that? I've got an interrogation I need to do. Have fun. Not a cop has logged off. Blur, is there any way you could possibly help me? Or, probably not. There's a slight chance. Laughing face. Or, but it's funnier this way. Sad face. Or, have fun. Nezu hadn't had a puzzle this interesting for quite a long time. Blur was a hacker Nezu had heard of, though hadn't paid all that much attention to at first. A new hacker popped up every other week. Most of the time it was nothing interesting. A majority of new ones would get caught quickly, though that could be attributed to what their hacking style normally was. Hacking for power or money did mean the police spent more time on them than the hackers who didn't do anything that affected others. Blur seemed to be such a hacker. One who hacked simply because he could, not for much reason other than that. He'd been doing it for a while before he'd joined the chat. Once he joined the chat though, he'd caught Nezu's attention. First, Nezu prevented him from leaving the chat. He'd made it so anyone trying to leave couldn't without his approval. Shoyuda was the reason it was made. Blur kept trying to leave the chat, in which Nezu of course stopped him from leaving. Which was interesting. If he were a hacker, he would have been able to hack out of it. Especially since the security on the chat was slightly lower than the security for UA itself. Blur had hacked into UA, Nezu knew from the security alert. Yet he couldn't get out of the chat. It made no sense. At the time at least. First Nezu tried tracking Blur. But he couldn't track him, at least not right away. His tracking software kept saying error when Nezu started. After Blur logged off though, his location changed from Per to a somewhat sketchy apartment. And although Nezu could have checked the tenant list for the apartment, that would be far too easy. Instead, Nezu started checking the quirk registry for any quirks that may be in play. Blur had to have a technology quirk of some kind to be able to hack into UA but not hack out of the chat. None of the quirks he found made sense. At least not for the main theory he had. It had to be unregistered. Why would it be unregistered? Did Blur delete the information on himself? Or was it never added to begin with? A few weeks later, Nezu had his answer. It was never added until Izuku Midoriya changed his registry. A quirk that allowed the user to use the internet without a device. After being quirkless for about 9 years, it'd explain most of Blur's concerning behavior. The quirk's status changed just before Midoriya changed schools, likely as a brand new start, as humans like to call it. Nabu Middle School, which had absolutely horrible cybersecurity. While Nezu was the smartest creature on the planet, the security was so easy that someone just starting to learn hacking could do it without a problem at all. Looking through the cameras, Nezu followed Midoriya as he had his first day at this new school. Most things seemed normal up until lunch. Nezu heard as students warned Midoriya of this other kid, Hitoshi Shinso. Midoriya's body language showed he was uncomfortable around this group of students as they spouted quirkist ideology. Midoriya left, with the excuse the teacher wanted to talk to him before class started. He quickly fled to the rooftop, likely for privacy. Though he lacked proper awareness of his surroundings as he didn't notice Shinso before disappearing, Nezu knew there must have been more to his quirk. More evidence for Midoriya and Blur being one in the same came as Blur explained to the group chat that he had changed schools and didn't know whether to trust what some students were saying or if said students were being quirkist. Unlikely to just be a coincidence. A few weeks later, Blur slipped. Almost anyway, having deleted the message almost immediately after sending it. Not enough to keep Nezu from seeing it. A while back, Hitoshi and Nemuri kept on sending things into the chat only to delete it immediately after, driving Shoyuta insane. So Nezu made it so he could see everything ever sent, deleted or not, so that whenever Hitoshi and Nemuri did it he could send it all to Shoyuta after, causing somewhat less insanity. On Shuta's end anyway. Jokes on you, I don't have parents to tell, was what Blur had sent before deleting it. Looking back on the police database, Hitoshi Midoriya's residence was listed as being in America. Interestingly, Inko Midoriya's residence, while still being in Japan, was different from where Nezu tracked Midoriya's home. Absent parents, yet the CPS had done nothing to help him. Nezu frowned. He hated how the quirkless, or the supposed quirkless, were treated. It's entirely likely Midoriya was hiding from the CPS. At least before he registered his quirk. The more he learnt about Midoriya's mistreatment, the more plans began to form in his mind. His first action? Burning a school district to the ground. Finally finished giving everything he knew to Tsukauchi, Izuku left his room. Which reminded him that Shinso was, in fact, in his living room. And that right now he should definitely finally have that conversation. The same conversation they should have had weeks ago. Do why you think we can tea-talk as Shinso? Izuku asked, unsure how to start a conversation like this. About what? Oh, right. Shinso looked away from Izuku. You don't have to if it makes you uncomfortable. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe Izuku should have waited until Shinso was in his new foster home to even mention it. What if he felt he had to because Izuku was keeping him here? What if it made everything go wrong and Shinso hated him? What if, you don't need to worry about me hating you. We, had to talk about it at some point anyway. Izuku looked at Shinso as his face heated up. He'd said it out loud. Are you sure why you're okay talking about it now? Izuku walked towards the table. Shinso got up from the couch to join him at said table. Yeah, we'd have to anyway. I guess it's better to talk now rather than later. Where do we begin? Izuku thought out loud. Maybe what you said right after you reappeared? Shinso suggested, sounding equally unsure. That makes sense. Izuku was internally sighing with relief. His stutter, at least around Shinso, was starting to go away. Well, I was told by Yokoyama and his friends not to talk to you because why you would become a villain. I asked why and they said it was because of your quirk. I was fairly sure they were being Q quirkist. But I didn't know how to start talking to you. I asked some online friends but they weren't very helpful. Afterwards I never had a chance to talk to you. Either B because of Yokoyama or B because you had already left. He was fairly sure he had summed everything up fine. Shinso was silent for a moment, absorbing the word vomit that was his explanation. Hitoshi, once again, had no idea how to feel. The explanation made a lot of sense. But years of being lied to wouldn't go away just because something made sense. There was a part of him that wanted to believe Midoriya. Hitoshi internally groaned in annoyance. He hated his trust issues at times. They were important most of the time, yes, but this could be the one time he didn't need them. The one time he wanted them to go away, so that he could stop overthinking and just believe Midoriya. Could I use my quirk on you? I just need to be sure. Hitoshi figured at least this way he'd know. He'd know if Midoriya was scared of what his quirk could do. He'd know if Midoriya had been lying. He'd know the truth. Oh, of course. Midoriya replied, Hitoshi snagging him with his quirk at the positive response. Were you telling the truth just before? Yes. Hitoshi sighed with relief. At least he could trust that. Are you scared of my quirk? It wouldn't hurt to ask while Midoriya had to tell the truth. No. Why? Because the quirk doesn't make a person heroic or villainous. It's what the person does with it that counts. Hitoshi froze. No one had ever said that to him before. No one had told him his quirk wasn't villainous. He also had never heard someone say there was no such thing as a heroic quirk. Izuku snapped out of Shinso's mind control. He knew how he had responded, he could feel himself responding. He was also pretty impressed and proud of his response, saying there were no heroic or villainous quirks. Shinso seemed to be contemplating that answer. Shinso, do why you need a hug? Izuku offered, unsure whether it was the right thing to do. Shinso was still for a minute. Right as Izuku was going to backtrack, Shinso nodded. The hug was both awkward but comforting. It was interesting. Neither really knew how to hug, both not having one in years. But it worked. No one's ever said something like that to me before. Izuku felt what must have been a tear fall onto his shoulder. Do you really think that? Shinso pulled away from their hug to look at Izuku. To watch him as he answered, yes. People shouldn't be judged on what their quirk can do but what they actually do with it instead. His stutter was gone, replaced with confidence. Shinso needed to hear this. As did Izuku in some way. He thought for a moment whether this would be a good idea. Being this vulnerable when he had only just started actually talking to Shinso. Looking back at Shinso's eyes, Izuku knew he had to. You remember how I had mentioned a misdiagnosis when you used your quirk on me the first time? Shinso seemed to recoil slightly at the memory before nodding. Everyone used to think I was quirkless. Everyone used to think I was quirkless. It came out much easier than Izuku thought it would. Though to be fair, Izuku didn't think he'd ever tell anyone at his new school about that part of his past unless he were forced to. If he was being honest, he thought it had happened by going out with friends only to run into his past bullies, particularly Bakugo. Izuku also thought he'd be scared when it got out. But he didn't. He felt as though everything would be alright. There was someone I used to be friends with. Once I got diagnosed as quirkless though, he turned on me. Izuku saw Shinso flinch slightly at that before a look of understanding overtook Shinso's face. Everyone said he had a heroic quirk. Everyone said he would be the best hero. But that quirk was the same thing he used to hurt me, all because I wanted to be a hero too. If a heroic quirk could be used in such a villainous way, is there such thing as a heroic and villainous quirk? That's my thoughts anyway. There was a comfortable silence for a few minutes. I'm sorry you had to go through all that, especially since it was a misdiagnosis. Shinso finally said, yeah, at first when I found out I actually had a quirk I was angry at the doctor for his mistake. But now, if I hadn't gone through all that I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have changed schools and met you. That, and Izuku wasn't sure if he'd be in the group chat. If he had support the whole time, would he have tried to get past Yue's firewall? He wasn't sure. Izuku saw Shinso's face change. It looked like Shinso was internally debating something. Then it hit Izuku. Shinso might think he has to explain his life story to Izuku because he did. Before you say anything, you don't have to explain anything. I know I just told you what was basically my life story but you don't have to. Izuku tried to reassure him, though he wasn't sure how good he was at it since he had never done this before. I want to tell you about it. Shinso finally said. It's good for becoming friends, right? I honestly have no idea. This is a first for me. Izuku admitted. Shinso nodded in agreement. It might be, but you don't have to if it makes you uncomfortable. It doesn't make me uncomfortable, it's honestly just anxiety at your reaction? Shinso tried to explain. Yeah, that's how I felt when I had first decided to tell you of my previous status. Izuku thought for a moment. Do you want coffee or tea before you start? Or maybe a snack? Coffee, please. Shinso looked relieved at the idea of coffee. Izuku got up to start making it. After a moment, Shinso followed him. If you want a snack as well, the pantry is just over there. Izuku pointed to it. You can grab whatever you want, it's not my money. That reminds me. What did you mean your parents wouldn't know I was here? Should he tell Shinso about his lack of parents? Friends share relatable things, yeah? My dad left when I was misdiagnosed and my mum left a few years after that. Sometimes Izuku wished he had shown Inko his quirk, other times he's glad he didn't. If having no quirk meant so much, to the point that she didn't love him anymore, why would a quirk change that? She'd love the quirk, not him. How did you avoid the system? Well, no one cares about the quirkless kid. My status didn't change until just before I changed schools, and even then I've been seen as quirkless for so long people aren't really checking on me. Izuku explained. That, and I've just kept pretending Inko is still around. How do you still have a place then? The kettle finished boiling while Shinso spoke. Well, you know what my quirk is. Somewhat anyway. I just take money from Endeavor to pay for this. Izuku watched as Shinso turned his neck so fast he was worried he'd given Shinso whiplash. You're taking money from the number 2 hero? Izuku nodded. For how long? Probably since I was around 10. Shinso's jaw dropped. And you haven't been caught? He has an insane amount of money and I don't take all that much. I do a frequent small amount, normally taking the same amount each week. If anyone bothered to check it'd just look like a subscription service. Though it wasn't like that at first. Only when Izuku realized it was a good idea to make it look less suspicious did he change it to weekly payments. How are you doing it? With my quirk. Izuku said happily, proud of his explanation. Shinso just stared at him. I should probably explain my quirk properly. No, of course not. Shinso's voice was dripping with sarcasm. Well, my quirk lets me access the internet. I can access it right now by just thinking of accessing it? Hard to explain, but that's the part I've told the class and put on the quirk description. I can also access it by teleporting into it, which you saw on the rooftop. To get out of the internet, I either get out where I teleported in or I can set devices as specific locations. I'm not fully sure how it works, but it does, so I'm not complaining. Shinso was, again, silent while he processed all of that. How does going into the internet lead to stealing from the number 2 hero? Was what Shinso asked when he finally spoke. Well, firewalls are like actual physical walls for me. You know those sticky notes thing you can have on your laptop? Shinso nodded. Well, I can summon. I don't think that's the right word, but I'm going with it. I can summon them and climb them, so I just made a staircase of them to get past the firewall. Which, that firewall, was nowhere close to being as tall as Yue's firewall. You've hacked Yue? You've hacked Yue? Hitoshi couldn't believe it. This person, who has been a pretty amazing human being, at least compared to how everyone else has treated him, which is a pretty low bar, but still. Midoriya hacked Yue, and was talking so fucking casually as if he did that sort of stuff every day. Which he probably did. Isn't that a weird thought? That a 14-year-old had a hobby of hacking websites or organizations with the top cybersecurity. It wasn't all that hard, and it wasn't a bad idea. I fell into a group chat thanks to it and can't leave it. So I'm now apparently friends with pro heroes. Midoriya paused for a moment. There's also Nezu in the chat, which is pretty terrifying. No shit, Sherlock. Hitoshi all but screamed. His possibly a friend was in a group chat with Nezu. Nezu of all people. Hitoshi watched as Midoriya nonchalantly continued making coffee. He felt like banging his head against the wall. He finally maybe made a friend and said friend was doing things like this. Next thing you're gonna tell me is you've hacked the police. Hitoshi watched as Midoriya froze. Please don't tell me you've hacked the police. Midoriya's silence said it all. Midoriya, why? Midoriya looked everywhere but at Hitoshi. Midoriya, what did you do? Hitoshi didn't know whether or not he actually wanted to know now. Was he about to hear that Midoriya was a criminal or something? Please don't get mad at me. Midoriya mumbled. He probably wouldn't have heard it if he hadn't been bullied. One of the only good things to come out of it? His amazing hearing. Sure. Midoriya turned so his whole body faced Hitoshi. I need you to promise me you won't get mad. Or at least won't until later. I promise I won't get mad. Hitoshi said, now even more nervous at hearing Midoriya's answer. It couldn't be anything normal if hacking into the police station wasn't already bad enough. I was figuring gutwario alivid because I went to talk to boot kudentatskaland and trust the skull files I'm so sriinowitz weird dash. While Midoriya spoke insanely fast, getting quieter and quieter as he spoke, Hitoshi caught most of it. What Izuku said if it's too hard to read. I was figuring out where you lived because I wanted to talk to you but couldn't at school and didn't trust the school files. I'm sorry, I know it's weird dash. It wasn't as bad as Hitoshi was expecting. Probably wasn't great, but Hitoshi also had no idea how friends acted at his age. All he'd seen of people being friends was bullying those different to them, and that wasn't what he'd ever want to do. Were they friends now? Shit, Hitoshi thought, realizing he hadn't responded yet. I'm not mad at you. I just wasn't expecting that. Hitoshi was fairly sure it was a good response. Up until Midoriya froze. Which made Hitoshi immediately regret what he said, and he started thinking how he could have responded better. I don't understand. Midoriya said, breaking Hitoshi out of his thoughts. Don't understand what? Hitoshi asked, seemingly equally confused as Midoriya. Why you aren't mad at me? I know I asked you not to be, but finding out a stranger practically stalked you sounds like a good reason to be mad at someone. Midoriya pointed out. I'm going to be completely honest, I have no idea how friends work at this age, and while hacking the police definitely isn't what most friends do, I am still so confused at this point that I don't think I could be mad unless you've done something seriously messed up. Hitoshi explained, proud of himself. Midoriya stayed silent. Please tell me you haven't done anything seriously messed up. Hitoshi watched as Midoriya seemed to snap out of his thoughts. No. I haven't done anything seriously messed up. I was just lost in thought, sorry. Midoriya explained as Hitoshi let out a sigh of relief. I was worried for a moment there, Midoriya. Hitoshi said, finally going back to look at the snacks. He had almost forgotten all about them. Izuku. Hitoshi turned around. You can call me Izuku. I don't really like the name Midoriya because of Inko. Then you can call me Hitoshi. They both shared a small smile before going back to making coffee and looking at snacks. A few moments later both of them were on the couches, snacks and coffee resting on the coffee table nearby. What have you heard of me from people? Hitoshi started. If he knew what Izuku thought of his past, it'd make starting to talk so much easier. I heard that your parents died in a car accident. Hitoshi was thankful Izuku hadn't mentioned what else he had heard of that, sure that Yokoyama had told Izuku more than just that. When I was 5 my parents were driving me to a doctor because my quirk hadn't come in yet. Hitoshi saw the way Izuku's frown deepened. I had asked my mum if we could go to McDonald's after. After I accidentally used my quirk on her, my dad got distracted and didn't see the lights were red. Hitoshi took a deep breath. According to the paramedics, my parents died on impact. My grandparents had all died and my parents were single children. No one else in the family really knew of me, so none of them wanted to take me in. None of my parents' friends either, most because they couldn't afford to take me in. So I was put in the foster system. He took a sip of his coffee. They took me to the quirk doctor to register my quirk. My teachers found out, then told my class. Most had already known about my parents' death, so learning my quirk? That's when the rumors started. It's been downhill since then, mainly from the foster parents. Though not having any friends hasn't been my favorite either. Another awkward hug later, both cups were empty as the boys watched a movie on the TV. Chat name, The Hacker and the Cop. Hacker. Do you know when the foster parents are getting interrogated? I know for a fact you could find that out yourself. Hacker. I am very offended. I would never ever do anything illegal like that. Do you even know me? It is too late for this. Hacker. Then why are you awake? Because I have a job that needs me at insane times. I should be the one asking you why you're awake. Hacker. BC, I can't sleep. Fun times. Anyway, when will you interrogate them? We're planning on getting them after they finish work tomorrow. I'll probably be interviewing them half an hour after. Hacker. When do you think this whole thing will be over? Or at least when they won't be involved anymore? This is really suspicious of you, Blur. But I am far too sleep-deprived to care at this point. Hacker. Probably in a week or so. 2 weeks max. Hacker. Thanks. You should go to bed. So should you. Hacker. Bye. Chat name, League of No Dads. Teenage Dietbei. I need to ask a favor. Slow decay. Why the fuck are you texting me at 2 a.m. in the morning? Teenage Dietbei. Well, you guys are villains, yeah? Slow decay. Depends. Teenage Dietbei. I need you to kill some people in like 2 weeks. They were scummy people, so they deserve death. But I don't want it on my record. So I figured you guys wouldn't care about that and do it for me instead. Slow decay. Why would we do that for you? Teenage Dietbei. BC, technically I have blackmail on you all. Slow decay. Teenage Dietbei. This chat to begin with. That, and I'm a hacker and could figure out who you are and hand that to an officer. I have a good friend who's one. Slow decay. What about you are messages? Teenage Dietbei. Well, I'm a hacker. You know I could just wipe it off, yeah? Slow decay. What if I took screenshots, Aaron? Teenage Dietbei. You dare underestimate my power? Slow decay. I print them immediately. Teenage Dietbei. Refer to my previous statement. Slow decay. What the fuck? Teenage Dietbei. We should know this by now. Slow decay. Who do you want me to kill? Teenage Dietbei. I won't tell you just yet since you still will have to wait about 2 weeks. Slow decay. Why do I have to wait 2 weeks? Teenage Dietbei. Because they need to be interrogated first, so that people know they are guilty. Then they die and my friend never has to deal with them again. Slow decay. You want me to murder some people. BC, they were mean to you, our friend. Teenage Dietbei. Mean is an understatement, but yes. As mentioned, I'd do it myself, but don't want it on my record. I am planning on going to a hero school. Slow decay. W. Teenage Dietbei. Slow decay. Teenage Dietbei. Oh yeah, you're a villain. Slow decay. Why do you keep texting this chat then? Teenage Dietbei. Because being a menace to society is fun. Slow decay. And you want to be a hero? Teenage Dietbei. Yep. Slow decay. E? Teenage Dietbei. Because I want to help people? Make sure everyone knows they can be whatever they want since I didn't get that. Slow decay. That's actually a good reason. Most people want to be heroes for fame and money now. Teenage Dietbei. Yeah, which are stupid reasons to become a hero. Anyway, I'ma go see ya. Slow decay. Finally I can go to sleep. Teenage Dietbei. You care. Slow decay. Teenage Dietbei. Well, you could have ignored this. Instead of staying. Slow decay. I hate you. Teenage Dietbei. Your actions say otherwise. Izuku quickly left the chat, before an argument truly started. Now all he had to do was wait for the interrogations to finish and get what was his name. Shigaraki? Yeah, that sounds right. Shigaraki to kill those people, then he wouldn't have to worry about Hitoshi ever seeing them again. Is it heroic? Depends on who you ask. Does Izuku care? Nope. Izuku wasn't all that excited for school this morning. He'd have to deal with Yokoyama and the rest. Which he had to anyway, but today would be particularly annoying to deal with. Since Izuku had finally found out the truth about Hitoshi. Likely not everything, but enough to know Yokoyama was definitely a bully. Unfortunately, Izuku wasn't a fan of confrontation, which is exactly what he'd deal with since he wasn't going to let Hitoshi be alone at school anymore. Entering the classroom was the easiest part. Izuku and Hitoshi walked over to their desks. It wasn't common for the both of them to arrive at the same time. Izuku arriving early and Hitoshi arriving last minute. Immediately Yokoyama made a beeline for Izuku. Hey Midoriya. Let's go talk over there. Yokoyama pointed towards his and Kitahara's desk. And no thanks. Izuku replied, hoping it would be easy to break away from the group he had been forced into. What do you mean Midoriya? There was an edge to his voice. I don't want to go over tea there. What? You'd rather stay next to a villain? Izuku saw Hitoshi flinch in the corner of his eye. Hitoshi isn't and will never be a villain. He had no idea where this confidence had come from. Hitoshi? Have you been talking to the villain? I've already told you. He isn't a villain. Nor will he ever be a villain. He is already far more heroic than you. Izuku took a deep breath. Now please leave me and my friend alone. You're going to regret this Midoriya. With that Yokoyama left. Izuku sagged in relief. Chat name. The pros and cons. I did a thing. And should be rewarded. Drugs. Was this another normal human thing? Before I mute you. Drugs. Sucks to be you. That's a problem for everyone else. You know what? I'm choosing violence. Drugs. Wait, what do you mean? 20 minutes later. I will cancel all your subscription services midnight. Drugs. WTF. Do it. Cockatoo. Do not do it. For the love of all things holy, please don't. Drugs. How do you know I am midnight? I'm a hacker. Drugs. It took you 20 minutes. 20. Shouldn't it take far longer than that? I'm pretty good. Yet you were unable to leave the chat. I'm sure it has something to do with Nezu. Almighty leader. Smiley face. Guilty. Not a cop. Why are you causing chaos, Blur? Not my fault. Midnight started it. Drugs. Did not. Fuck it, I'm canceling your Pickle of the Month Club subscription. Drugs. Cockatoo. WTF. Is that why you have so many fucking pickles? Drugs. Shut up. Drugs. I meant shut. Not shit. Everyone shut up. Never. I have screenshotted this whole thing. And will post it on the internet. Unless you shut up and let me actually explain what I came here to say anyway. Drugs. Cockatoo. I need some of that blackmail. Imagine not already having blackmail. Oh, shut up, show. I will find you. Carry on. Cockatoo. Show you can't just threaten everyone you get annoyed at. I can. I will. And I have. Cockatoo. Apologize. Cockatoo. Sorry. At Almighty Leader who is Blur? Because I know for a fact you know. Almighty Leader. Smiley face. Almighty Leader has logged off. But anyway, I had a thing to say. Cockatoo. Yeah. Vatishite. I finally talked to the person. Found out the truth. Then stood up to the quirkest bastards. Cockatoo. Good job. Thanks. Drugs. Congrats. Doesn't feel sincere enough. Drugs. Blur, I officially hate you so much. Nem used grammar. Cockatoo. What did you do, Blur? I cancelled her single swag subscription. Drugs. How did you even do that? Drugs. You can't just say that. But I already did. Said it. If you look, the email you got about the cancelled subscription is a fake email. You're very gullible. Drugs. I never want to meet you in person. Well, sucks to suck. Sounds like a you problem. I just realized something. Blur is young enough, he might go to UA. Then you will have to deal with him XD. Drugs. I am now tempted just for the lols. Cockatoo. You are planning on going to the top school in Japan. For the lols? That is what I said, yes. I hope I don't get you in my class. What does coffee teach? Almighty Leader has logged on. Almighty Leader. Heroics, this year he'll be teaching 1A. Almighty Leader has logged off. Did he seriously go online just to say that? Seems so. Sounds like I'm going into the hero course, laughing face. Drugs. We'll be dealing with him together. That includes you at Cockatoo. Cockatoo. He can't be that bad. You underestimate me. And since I know it, not a cop is a detective. And you didn't mention it's speed dealing with me. He is a pro hero but doesn't work at UA. And based off the name, I'll take a wild guess and say he is Ingenium. What the actual fuck? Why? Because I'm a menace to society. Sounds about right. Speed is Ingenium. Drugs is midnight. Ima say at Cockatoo is present mic then. Cockatoo. I was right. Victory. Drugs. You still don't know who at coffee is. Don't you fucking dare. Teacher of 1A this year. I will expel you. Not your student yet, Eraserhead. Chat name. The pros and cons. I have had an insane amount of caffeine. Define insane amount. I did a dumb and combined a Monster, a Red Bull, and a cup of coffee into one and drank it. It tasted horrible, but now I can see sounds and hear colors. Not a cup. Blur, that's 336 milligrams of caffeine. Is that bad? Not a cup. An adult is able to safely handle a max of 400 milligrams per day. Over a period of time. Not all at once. And we've established you're a child. Probably not great. Anyway, I'm going to do a possibly equally dumb thing. Chat name, UA staff. Unknown user has entered the chat. Unknown user had changed their name to Blur. Dezawa. God fucking damn it, Blur. One, Kiyama. Nezu, can I quit? Nezu. Nope. Smiley face. Kiyama. Shizenji. Who is Blur? Them ver good hacker. Who appeared in another chat with Aizawa and all in it. And have had far too much caffeine. Shizenji. How much caffeine have you had? As long as Tsukauchi's math is right. About 336 milligrams all at once. Shizenji. Dezawa. Don't even bother using brain power on him. It isn't worth it. Thanks. Anyway, back to chaos. Blur has changed Nezu's name to Rat God. Dezawa. Fuck, he can change names. Rat God. Smiley face. Blur has changed Aizawa's name to Main Kun. Blur has changed Yamada's name to Loud One. Blur has changed Kiyama's name to Cadbury. Cadbury. I'm not mad at this. Blur has changed Kurosa's name to Nebula. Nebula. I don't know who Blur is. But this is nice. Main Kun. Don't let him fool you with the name change. He is a demon in disguise. Blur. And after I gave you the good name I thought of. Main Kun. Blur. Exactly. Blur has changed Shizeji's name to Nurse Joy. Nurse Joy. Unfortunately, right. Blur has changed Maijima's name to Scoop. Blur has changed Ishiyama's name to Dizzy. Why this? Dizzy. Yeah, I don't get it. Blur. Both are characters from Bob the Builder. Scoop's character looks like your hero costume. And Dizzy makes concrete. Therefore it makes sense. Blur has changed Inui's name to Scooby-Doo. Blur has changed Can's name to Vampire. Blur has changed Ectoplam's name to Puffed Man. Blur has changed Lunch Rush's name to Swedish Chef. Blur has changed Snipe's name to Deadshot. Blur. Everything is how it should be now. Loud One. Why didn't you change the chat name? Blur. If I did, people would have to remember what the staff chat was called now. Which is prob a bad idea. So therefore I kept it the same. Cadbury. Blur having good ideas for once? What dimension have I entered? Blur. I will leak it. Cadbury. The what? The gastrus. Blur. The other day. When I threatened your subscriptions. And you had a typo like the one you just did. Cadbury. Carry on. Blur. Thank you. Why did everyone use their family name in this chat but Ectoplasm, Lunch Rush, and Snipe? Don't have to answer, I'm just curious. Record. Those three do not want any chance of people connecting their hero persona and their personal life. So they had asked me to keep that information out of UA's servers, including this. Blur. Yeah, that's fair. Some people are really creepy. Nurse Joy. Blur, I'd recommend lying down by now. Blur. Nurse Joy. That amount of caffeine at once wouldn't be a great time for your body. And it would be better to buy lying down when the inevitable crash appears. Blur. That'd be smart. Main Kun. So you can't do it. Blur. I also have blackmail on you. Shut. Main Kun. Kind. Blur. Ages ago when you made me promise not to attempt to take over the world. And in exchange I made you say a thing. While that doesn't work towards some people in this chat, it works for the rest. Main-kun. Loud one. No one has blackmail on show. Except for Nezu. Cadbury. Sparkles fear sparkles. Loud one. You already know the blackmail? Cadbury. He has blackmail on show. That's practically impossible to do. Imagine the blackmail he has on us. Loud one. Cadbury. Right? Vampire. I do not want to be on Blur's bad side. Deadshot. At least we only have to worry when using the chat. Blur. Laughing face. Loud one. Ha funny joke. Deadshot. It wasn't a joke. Blur. Degree. Cadbury. He's young enough to apply for UA? Excuse me, what? I helped with the cybersecurity. How did a child hack it? Blur. For good. The fuck you said? Blur. For good. I need to lie down. For your. Main-kun. At least you won't have to deal with him. Blur. Laughing face. Vampire. He's applying for the hero course. Main-kun. You can't fucking talk. He'll be put into my class because the rat's a sadistic bastard. Record. Smiley face. Blur. Smiley face. Cadbury. There's two of them. Loud one. Fucking scatter everyone. The final bell of the day rang signally they could finally go home. Izuku and Hitoshi walked towards the gate only to see a police officer and a detective waiting there. Forgetting that he had told Tsukauchi about Hitoshi's situation, Izuku was prepared to ignore them, until they started to walk towards Hitoshi and himself, which caused Izuku to tense, fear filling up his body. You're Hitoshi Shinso, yes, the detective asked. Hitoshi nodded. I'm Detective Tsukauchi. I'll need to ask you some questions about your living situation. That's right. Izuku had told Tsukauchi about Hitoshi. He'd somewhat forgotten about it. It had been about 3 or 4 days since he told him. If you want, we can go elsewhere before the questions start. Either the station or where you've been staying would be preferable. Izuku zoned back just in time to hear that. Hitoshi looked over at Izuku. There was a silent question. Izuku nodded. I'd rather be questioned where I've been staying. Tsukauchi nodded. If you could lead us there, we'll get started soon after. With that they left. Izuku would be lying if he said he wasn't a little nervous. Where he lived was pretty sketchy. On top of that, he did not have parents living with him. Even worse if Tsukauchi asked him where his parents were. Maybe he could get away with saying they were at work? But even if that rang as true, if he was asked when they'd get home, Izuku would be screwed. Izuku was so happy that Hitoshi would have Tsukauchi on his case. But it was times like this where Izuku was not a fan of Tsukauchi's quirk, which he couldn't even ask questions on because he isn't supposed to know it. Izuku broke out of his thoughts when they finally got to his apartment. He watched as Tsukauchi looked around the living, likely noticing the lack of family anything. They sat on the couches, Izuku and Hitoshi on one while Tsukauchi and the officer were on the other. Before we get started, can I know what your name is? Tsukauchi asked while looking at Izuku. He took a deep breath in. Tratti no basso. Naomasa had finally been able to go out and question Shinso. It had taken a few days, both by opening the case and finding the foster parents before bringing them in for questioning. Normally he would have looked for the kid in this sort of case. But Blur had said the kid should be safe with the supposed friend that had taken him in. So Naomasa decided to get the foster parents in custody first, to try and prevent them from escaping. Either way, he had gone to Shinso's school with another officer to try and find him. Blur said he didn't know where the supposed friend lived, which felt like a lie since he probably could have tracked them anyway. After confirming he had found Shinso, he had asked where Shinso would be more comfortable being interviewed. Naomasa watched as Shinso turned to his friend, who nodded. Then Shinso said he would prefer being questioned at his friend's home. It didn't take too long to get to the friend's home. The apartment complex was sketchy, causing a chill to run down Naomasa's spine. Looking around the living room only made the bad feeling worse. There weren't any family pictures of any kind. The apartment barely looked lived in. The only indication someone lived there was the groceries on the bench yet to be properly put away. Naomasa would ignore it for now, if only to get Shinso's questioning done before opening this case. Before we get started, can I know what your name is? Naomasa looked towards the green-haired child when he asked, hoping he'd understand the question was for him. My name is Izuku Midoriya. Thank you. As I said before, I am Detective Tsukauchi. My quirk is called Lie Detector. It allows me to know when you are telling the truth and when you are lying. Does that make sense? Both nodded their heads. Shinso, the police were informed of your foster parents kicking you out by an informant of ours. Could you tell me about that day? It was a normal day. The Tsukauchis had gone out grocery shopping. When they came home they told me to pack my stuff. I was confused but did as I was told because I knew it'd be worse if I didn't. Pausing the story quickly, what do you mean, it'd be worse if you hadn't done what they said? It'd all depend on their mood. Sometimes it was just sending me to my room without dinner. Other times, they got out the muzzle. Naomasa hated it. He wished it wasn't true. Continuing on with what happened that day, how did they tell you they were kicking you out? After I packed everything, Hatsume Mei yelled at me to leave and never come back. I don't know where Hidnori Tsukauchi had gone. After the door was slammed shut, Izuku found me and offered to let me stay here until this was all over. At this point it was clear Shinso was starting to panic. If you'd like we can take a short break. Myself and Officer Yuasa can wait here while you both go to another room until you are ready to continue. Shinso looked hesitant. Thank you, Detective. Midoriya said before lightly tugging Shinso towards the kitchen. Once they left, Naomasa felt his phone vibrate. He grabbed it out before groaning in annoyance. Of course Blur had found a way to watch him question Shinso and Midoriya. Hacker. Gasp, I'm an informant to you. Officially best day ever. Do I even want to know how you're watching this? Hacker. Probably not. I hacked into the apartment cameras. Naomasa looked around trying to find a camera. I don't see any? Hacker. Well, Avi. It may be a sketchy apartment but it has cameras. If anything they have better cameras than normal apartment. You know, since it's a sketch area they need it for safety. I am too tired to argue with you over this. Hacker. Good. Back to the original point. I'm an informant. I only said that so I didn't scare the children. Hacker. First off, they look like they're almost adults, so I don't think children is the best word. Second, why? Do you think they'd react well to a hacker who may or may not be doing illegal stuff in their free time told us about you? Hacker. I'm sure it'd be fine. At the very least, the green one looked like they could handle it. The purple one looks too tired to care about it. You should get off your phone now. It looks like they're about to go back. Keep me updated. You're just going to be watching it though? Hacker. And? You know what, fine. Hacker. Laughing face. Almost as soon as Naomasa put his phone away, both Shinso and Midoriya returned just like Blur said. Midoriya, do you have cameras in your living room? Naomasa watched as Midoriya contemplated the question. Maybe? I'm not really sure. I'd think so. This complex is pretty sketchy, so it'd only make sense. Naomasa mentally noted the lack of knowledge surrounding cameras. Then it hit him. Midoriya had mentioned the complex having cameras. While yes, it'd have them outside, any cameras inside would be controlled by his parents. Could you ask your parents about it? ******. Izuku was internally panicking. Tsukauchi had to know something by now. It was already hard enough to dodge the camera question in the first place. Not right now, they're at work. As long as they were both at work it should register as true. Tsukauchi's right eye twitched. Izuku had watched a few videos of Tsukauchi interrogating people before. So he knew what to look for. Whenever Tsukauchi's right eye twitched it meant the person was telling the truth. If his left eye twitched it meant the person had. But when will they be home? I'm not sure. They work strange hours. False. The first statement was true. The second was false. The bad feeling Naomasa had been feeling grew. What hours do they normally work then? Midoriya froze. The feeling grew. It changes between days. False. I can't help you if you keep lying to me. ******. Fuck, Tsukauchi knew. He knew he was lying. Izuku knew it'd be a stretch saying his parents worked strange hours. He should have just mentioned Inko. Last he checked she worked at a hospital, which would have strange hours changing from day to day. It registered as a lie because he was talking about both parents. His father left when he was 5. Izuku hasn't been able to find any traces of his father on the internet. For all he knew, his father was dead. Either way, his father's working hours were probably what made it a lie. Maybe he could still get out of this somehow? Izuku hummed, hoping that it didn't somehow count as a lie. You don't know when they'll be home. That was the truth. You said they worked strange hours. That was a lie. Fuck, he hoped this worked. Oh. I think it registered as a lie B because I mentioned both of them. My dad left when I was 5. And my mum works at a hospital. Tsukauchi's right eye twitched. Izuku internally sighed with relief. Why did you mention both parents before? Shit. He really shouldn't have. Why you asked me when they'd be home, and I got really anxious over it. We'll come back to that later. No thanks, I'd really rather not. Is what Izuku would say if he could. Why not? Tsukauchi looked at him. Fuck, he said that out loud. I just don't want to. Izuku was looking anywhere but at Tsukauchi. He needed to find a way out of this now. Please tell me why. Izuku silently laughed at that before sending a text to Tsukauchi. One moment. Tsukauchi pulled his phone out. Acker. Ain't nothing, but a heartache. I'm kinda busy. Acker. You reminded me of a song with the, tell me why, but yo. What song? Acker. Offended. I'll be telling Eraser about this. What song? Acker. You should get back to your job. Why you like this? Acker. It's the trauma. After I'm done with these cases. I swear I'll be starting a case on you. Acker. Cases? Last I checked you're having a chill week with only Shinso's case. I'll be starting a case for Midoriya. Even though some of his statements are ringing true to my quirk, I have a feeling he doesn't actually knows where his parents are. Which is not okay, and I refuse to let him go without any help. Acker. He seems like he's fine. If you were actually here you'd feel it. Something's up. Acker. And why a case for me? You are constantly texting concerning things. And technically already have a case, though that's for your hacking. And you've already admitted you're traumatized. Acker. I'm good, thanks. Unfortunately for you, you don't get a choice here. Acker. You should get back to your job. We'll talk about this later. Izuku watched Tsukauchi put his phone away. He had realized now that maybe it wasn't the best idea to tell him to put his phone away. He did not want him to keep talking about Izuku's lack of parents. Please let me help you. Izuku wanted to let him help. He really did. But years of adults lying to him didn't help all too much. Izuku looked at Tsukauchi again. For some reason it was hard to keep this lie up. He wasn't sure why, but something broke in him. I don't know where either of my parents are. Naomasa finally got through to Midoriya. He wasn't exactly sure how he did, but luckily for him it worked. I'll get 2 foster homes Aridash. I don't want to go to a foster home. Midoriya interrupted. But, not judging, I just want to know so I can find a solution. Naomasa quickly added more after realizing just why. It might sound like he was judging Midoriya. I'm not good with new people. That might be a problem, considering all foster homes would be a new person. I'll let you and Shinso stay here for a few more days while I find safe homes for you both. If it'd help any, I'll ask my friends and have them meet you both here first if you'd like. I can't just let the both of you stay here. Naomasa explained. Both children thought it over. And if I don't want to go with them? Midoriya was the first to speak of the two. I'll ask someone else then until we find someone right for you. That's the same for you, Shinso. Okay. Shinso answered this time. Midoriya nodded along. Naomasa smiled. He knew exactly who to ask. Shoyuta had no idea what to expect when he woke up to a message from Naomasa. All it said was to meet him at the station. Not cryptic whatsoever. He arrived to the station, beelining to Naomasa's office. He wouldn't be dealing with any of the other officers if he could get away with it. The woes of being a hero. No, Zashi, I'm not the dramatic one you are. Ah, there you are, Shoyuta. Naomasa greeted him as soon as the door shut. Why am I starting my patrol here? Straight to the point as always. A ding came from both of their phones. I swear if it's Blur again. Naomasa mumbled to himself. Before slamming his head on the desk. Chat name. The pros and cons. Blur. What you doing at Not a Cop and a Coffee? Damn, Tsukauchi, why'd you do that? Not a cop. You know why, you little demon. Blur. I have no idea. This is slander. Blasphemy. Do you even know what those words mean? But I don't care. Of course you don't. Betrayal. Not a cop. Please stop texting me when I'm working, Blur. You're practically always working though. It's very annoying. Blur, why are you like this? Not a cop. No, don't ask him that. It's the trauma. Not a cop. I will be starting that case on you. No, emoticono cara triste. Back to what I was saying, I'd like to know if you and Zashi would like to foster a kid. Nem already said she could take one but can't take both right now. Naomasa explained while pulling up a file. His name is Izuka Midoriya and I opened up a case for him when I was interviewing Shinso, the kid Blur told me about. I'd have to talk to Zashi first, but I don't think it'll be much of a problem. We've been meaning to foster for a while now anyway, just kept getting busy. The kid was currently 14, old enough to try out for UA if he wanted to. Shoyuta would have to ask him if they'd take the kid. Talk to him as soon as you can, he needs to meet you first before he'll accept being fostered. I don't blame him, from what we can tell both parents abandoned him. I wouldn't trust adults if that happened to me. We'll be having both you and Zashi meet Midoriya when Nemuri meets Shinso. It made sense, meeting Midoriya first. Even if he hadn't been abandoned, he's almost an adult. He should be able to pick who his guardian is. After I talk to him, I'll tell you. Anything else? Might as well ask now before he properly started his patrol. Not anything too pressing. I'll be starting a case for Blur once I'm done Shinsu's and Midoriya's. We know he'd be around 14 and with what he's let slip in the chat I'd want to help him as soon as I can. Not sure how much he'll like that, judging his response in the chat. Which was yet another concerning fact to add to the ever-growing list of Blur is one concerning being. Yeah, I've already told him he doesn't get a choice here. Be safe on your patrol. Shoyuta woke up the next morning to the smell of coffee. It was, in his opinion, the best way to wake up. Sitting up in bed, he grabbed his eye drops off the bedside table. Seeing that Zashi's hearing aids were charging, he'd have to wait until after breakfast to ask him about fostering. A slow morning then. He walked up behind Zashi, arms hanging around his husband's waist as Zashi kept cooking. Looking down, Shoyuta watched as Zashi made scrambled eggs. His husband loved making Western-styled breakfasts. One of his mums grew up in America, so she would often make breakfasts like this whenever she cooked. Shoyuta loved it because his husband loved it. He couldn't cook for the life of him, whereas cooking is Zashi's passion. It worked out well in the end. Eventually he had to let go of his husband so Zashi could serve up. Shoyuta got a cup of coffee from the espresso maker before sitting in his normal seat. They'd have to get a bigger table if they fostered Midoriya. Zashi came over with breakfast, briefly leaving to get his own drink. He came back with a steaming cup of matcha. Breakfast was quiet, the only noise being knives and forks scraping plates, with the occasional cup being lifted or put back down. All in all, the perfect morning. Once they were both finished, Shoyuta grabbed the plates and cups while Zashi went to get ready for the day. Shoyuta cleaned up in the morning and Zashi cleaned at night. Both cleaned at lunch. It made the most sense for them to do it that way. Zashi's hero costume always took a while to get ready, and even on days he didn't wear it, his hair always took a while regardless. Whereas Shoyuta always had patrol almost as soon as they finished dinner. That was another thing that might change with fostering. A small smile made its way onto Shuta's face. Zashi and him had talked about fostering or adopting one day. Both had been in the foster system at some point in their life, so they knew how hard it could be on someone. They wanted to be like their parents, providing a safe space for someone like them. What's got you smiling like that? Shoyuta was broken out of his thoughts by Zashi finally reappearing. Something I've been waiting to talk to you about. Shoyuta led Zashi over to the couch. Naomasa asked me last night if we'd be willing to foster. What did you say? Zashi was practically vibrating in his seat. I talked to you first. I know dash. I'd love to foster. You should know this show. Zashi was on the verge of yelling. I know, I just had to check first. I doubted you had changed your mind. Shoyuta gently grabbed one of Zashi's hands. I'll text Naomasa our answer. We'll be meeting him first before anything is decided. He doesn't seem to trust people all that much. It'd be good to let him have the choice. Zashi squeezed his hand. Though I do hope he chooses to come with us. Nem's also gonna be there to meet the other kid. Remember the one Blur told Naomasa about? Zashi nodded. Well, the kid we'll hopefully be fostering is the one who took him to his place. I can't wait to meet him. Izuku was not expecting Tsukauchi to find foster parents that quickly. He also wasn't expecting him to ask Midnight and Eraserhead, and by extension Present Mike. Midnight was asked to take Hitoshi whereas Eraser was asked to take Izuku himself. And since they were all friends he wouldn't have to worry about being separated from Hitoshi. Hey Toshi! He should probably warn his friend ahead of time though. Most people would probably freak out at a pro-hero offering to foster them. What crime did you commit this time? They had been proper friends for all of a few days, yet it had felt like they had been friends for years. I have done no such thing. Toshi stared at Izuku. Recently. More staring. Technically okay? Don't you want to know about our possible foster parents? Toshi huffed out a small laugh. I guess. Well, Tsukauchi is a part of the chat I fell into. And so are the people he's asked to meet us and foster us. Are they decent people? From how they act in the chat anyway. Toshi looked a little more relaxed at the idea of Izuku already knowing who might be fostering them. But a warning I guess? They are pro-heroes. Izuku explained. The person asked to foster you is Midnight. What do you mean Midnight? Toshi yelled. Exactly what I said. I thought it'd be a good idea to let you freak out now rather than in front of your possible foster parent. Who's going to foster you? Toshi changed the topic slightly, probably to ignore that Midnight could be fostering him. Well, have you heard of the hero Eraserhead dash? You're being fostered by fucking Eraserhead? Toshi started shaking Izuku's shoulders. I'll take that as a yes. But it gets even better? Worse? More confusing? Toshi stared at Izuku, like as though he was blue screening. Eraser is married to Dash. He's married? Toshi had a look of bewilderment on his face. Izuku burst out in laughter. Look, do you really think he would get married? Out of literally any other hero? Fucking guess who he's married to. Izuku said between the bursts of laughter. Ms. Joke. Izuku shook his head. Midnight. Izuku shook his head again. Who? Present Mike. Toshi blue screen again. Which made Izuku laugh even harder. Wait, I've just thought of the best idea ever. Toshi had a skeptical look on his face. Are you sure it's even a good idea? Izuku clutched a hand over his heart. Right in the heart. I am hurt to the death. Both boys giggled at that. What's the idea then? So I can decide for myself on whether it's as good as you think it is. Toshi said while smirking. I'ma add you to the group chat I fell into. That way you can also start feeling more comfortable with the heroes before we meet them in a few days. Therefore I am a genius. Izuku said proudly. I wouldn't say you're a genius. Izuku pouted. But I guess that is an okay idea. Fuck yeah. Chat name. The pros and cons. Blur. Allow me to introduce. Blur has added an unknown user to the chat. Blur has changed unknown user's name to Jazz. Blur. My friend, not the one who I met online. Covet. I feel bad for you at Jazz. Just, thanks. Blur. Betrayed. By my two best friends. Just, feel bad for you at Coffee. Blur. Fine. I'll summon her. Just, covet. No thanks. Blur. At Drugs Eraser is relating to my friend. Just, Coffee is Eraserhead? Covet. I hate you Blur. Drugs. Coffee is relating to a newbie? Drugs has been muted for 1 hour. Cockatoo. God damn it show. I am running to the airport. Not a cup. Come on, I was just doing paperwork. Blur. Just, why are they acting like that? Blur. Every time Midnight's been muted she's chased down those three for their phones. She becomes feral. Just, so Coffee is Eraserhead and Drugs is Midnight. Almighty leader. Smiley face. Just, is that one Nezu? Blur. Just, that's why you said it was terrifying being in this chat. Blur. Almighty leader. Good to know my reputation. Smiley face. Covet. Begone demon. Blur. Don't you dare Eraser. Almighty leader has been muted for 1 hour. What happens now? Cockatoo. I am even more terrified than normal. Just, This hasn't happened before? Blur. I am both terrified and excited to see what happens. Almighty Leader has been unmuted. Blur. Before you say anything, Eraser. Not me. He did it himself. Almighty Leader. Show Eraserhead Aizawa? Kakatu. Full name. Including hero name. Show is screwed. Yes, Nezu? Almighty Leader. You will be doing more paperwork for the next year. Smiley face. Almighty Leader. You also won't be able to expel any of your class until after the sports festival. Smiley face. Blur. Shouldn't have muted him. Fuck you. Blur has been muted for 1 hour. Blur has been unmuted. Just. Blur. Remember. Heckin' hacker. I just unmute myself. For others. This. Drugs has been unmuted. Kakatu. We have been saved. Thank you, Blur. Drugs. Damn show I know you mute people when they annoy you. But seriously? Nezu? Shut. Or I'll make you. Drugs. Blur can just unmute me. Merry Crisis. Drugs has been muted for 1 hour. Blur. No can do midnight. Just. Wait, Eraser also knows Vines? Didn't expect that. Blur. Right. No one else in this chat does. Closest to it is Present Mike, even then he isn't great at it. Kakatu. He's sad face. Blur. You're trying at least. Kakatu. Smiley face. Just. Who's the other two then? Blur. Well, at Speed is Ingenium. And at Not a Cop is Detective Tsukauchi. Just. But his name says he isn't a cop? Blur. He's a liar. God, I am so anxious. Toshi said while pacing around the living room. Did putting you in the group chat work though? Izuku was slightly calmer. He has technically known these people for almost a year. But they don't know that. And while Izuku would love to have a dramatic reveal that he is the person Eraser apparently doesn't want to meet in real life, he also doesn't want to get in trouble or see the people he views as safe adults to turn on him once they know who he really is. Leftover anxiety from when he was viewed as quirkless, he supposes. I guess? But I can't let them know, can I? Toshi sat down next to Izuku. From what I can tell, you're also anxious about it because you don't want them to know you and Blur are one in the same. Since when could you read minds? Toshi shrugged. We can't let them know, not yet anyway. But at least we have to keep it a secret together. I don't know how that makes it any better. Toshi said while Izuku sank further into the couch. Well, we could, I dunno, cover for each other? If needed? And we can talk to each other about it instead of bottling it up. Izuku explained. Looking at the time showed they'd be there any minute. Let's stop talking about this before they arrive and hear everything. Both boys sat in silence for a few minutes. Then there was a knock at the door. Union. ZZZ. Shoyuta watched as Naomasa knocked on a door. A door in which his possible foster kid was behind. The apartment building itself wasn't the worst. It was very sketchy, though if what they knew of the kid was even half true it made sense. The kid had been living alone for who knows how long. The only way he wouldn't be homeless would be an apartment like this. Low rates and landlords that don't pay attention. Shoyuta shook himself out of his thoughts. It wouldn't do him any good to be distracted when meeting the kid for the first time. The door opened to reveal the kids, who invited them inside soon after. Looking around the apartment didn't show all that much. Naomasa had told them that the apartment looked as though no one had lived there. Which was almost true, most of the apartment looked that way. Looking over at the kitchen counter showed some semblance of life. The living room had the occasional pillow out of place, though it was largely like the walls. Baron. Midoriya, Shinso, I'd like you to meet my friends who would like to foster you. The woman is my friend Kiyama, the man with blonde hair is Yamada, and the man with black hair is Aizawa. Any questions before I leave you guys to get to know each other? Naomasa asked while looking around at each person. When no one spoke, Naomasa nodded to himself. I'll be running a few errands while I'm gone. If you need me back before then, just call me. Silence overtook the group as Naomasa left. What would you kiddos prefer, getting to know us first or us getting to know you first? Zashi was an angel sent from the heavens. It was times like this that he loved his husband so much. Did get to know you first? Midoriya spoke up first. Shinso nodded along. All right then. Normal stuff or embarrassing stuff? There was a glint in Zashi's eyes. The same glint that appeared when he hides Shuta's sleeping bag. He takes back everything he thought of his husband. Zashi was sent from hell to torment him to the end of his days. Embarrassing stuff? Midoriya spoke again. If Shoyuta wasn't focused on thinking up his revenge, he would have noticed how confident Midoriya had become then. He would have noticed how familiar the kid was. But revenge was more important at the time, for all parties involved. Shuta's being his husband at the moment. Zashi and Nems being Shuta's constant muting others in the chat. Shoyuta wasn't paying much attention to the embarrassing stories being told, too caught up in his own mind, until his phone buzzed in his pocket. Chat name, new chat. Blur. Love the stories your husband is telling. Cover. How do you know that? Blur. Cameras in the house. And before you look for them. Tsukauchi tried and couldn't find them. Cover. He also isn't an underground hero. Blur. But he's a detective. So good enough. Cover. Not really. His job is interviewing due to his quirk. Looking into the details of what a person said. He doesn't normally look into the physical details unless they're short on detectives. Blur. Anyway, I'll stop annoying you for now. Being on your phone when meeting potential foster kids isn't a great look. Asterisk degree asterisk. Izuku was so happy Yamada was telling embarrassing stories, or else his laughter wouldn't make much sense. He watched as Aizawa put his phone away, only to eye the walls suspiciously, looking for the cameras that didn't exist. An hour went by, both sides exchanging stories or facts about themselves. The door opening interrupted them as Tsukauchi had returned. Midoriya, Shinso, have you decided? If you need, you can go to another room to discuss this. Tsukauchi said while pulling up a chair from the dinner table. Just a reminder, Kiyama would be fostering you Shinso while Aizawa and Yamada fostered you Midoriya. We'll go talk about it in another room first. Izuku said while getting up, Toshi doing the same. How are you feeling, Toshi? Izuku asked once they were out of earshot. Still anxious as fuck. But honestly, they seem pretty decent. Izuku nodded. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was pretty sure they were decent thanks to the chat, but still. Anxiety is not my best friend dash. It can't be because I'm your best friend. Toshi interrupted with a smirk on his face. Blush crept up onto Izuku's face for no apparent reason. We should go tell them our decision then. Izuku said, trying to distract himself from the heat rising up his face. They walk back to the adults, hands brushing against each other. Only because they're both anxious, right? I'm okay going with Kiyama. Toshi says, his voice monotonous to disguise his anxiety. Same here with Yamada and Aizawa. Izuku mentally sighs in relief. The hard part was over. Chat name, the pros and cons. 10:07 p.m. Just, Carl, there is a dead human in our house. Blur. Oh hey, how did he get here? Cockatoo. What the fuck? Why is there a dead body? Drugs. Blur's name is Carl? Just, Carl. What did you do? Cockatoo. Nem, that's what you are focusing on? Blur. I didn't do this. Drugs. BC, if I don't focus on it, it'll be focusing on the bad bits. Just explain what happened, Carl. Blur. I've never seen him before in my life. Just, why did you kill this person, Carl? Cockatoo. Blur kills people? Blur. I do not kill people. That is my least favorite thing to do. So he obviously didn't do it. He doesn't like it. Drugs. Yes, BC, that's how it works. Just, tell me, Carl. Exactly what you were doing before I got home. Blur. Alright, well I was upstairs. Just, blur. I was sitting in my room. Just, blur. Reading a book. Cockatoo. I half think this is one of those meme things Show and Blur know. Just, go on. Drugs. I think you are right. Blur. And well, this guy walked in. So self-defense. Just, blur. So I walked up to him. Just, blur. And I stabbed him 37 times in the chest. Drugs. I sure hope it's one of those weird things Show knows. Cockatoo. We can't even know until he gets back from patrol. That is a bit more than self-defense. Just, Carl. That kills people. Blur. Oh wow, I didn't know that. Just, how could you not know that? Blur. Yeah, I'm in the wrong here. Cockatoo. I am fairly sure it is just those meme things now. Drugs. I am hoping it is for once. Just, what happened to his hands? Blur. What's that? Just, his hands. Why are they missing? Drugs. Oh god, the hands are missing now. Blur. Well I kind of cooked them up and ate them. Just. Drugs. I swear to fuck if this isn't one of those weird things. Why would anyone eat hands? Just. Carl. Blur. Well I was hungry. And well you know, when you crave hands that's just. Why on earth would you do that? Cockatoo. Sho needs to hurry up with his patrol. I need answers. Blur. I was hungry for hands. Gimme a break. Just. Carl. Blur. My stomach was making the rumblies. Just. Carl. Blur. That only hands would satisfy. Just. What is wrong with you, Carl? Too many things to count. Blur. I kill people. And I eat hands. That's two things. Blur has logged off. Jazz has logged off. Cockatoo. Those little shits. Drugs. Zashi, you need to pester Sho about this as soon as he gets back. Cockatoo. Obviously. 3:01 a.m. Cockatoo. At coffee I know you just got off patrol. Where are you? Coffee has logged on. Blur has logged on. Carl. What on earth was all that? Blur. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Cockatoo. Fuck, Sho's doing it too. Drugs. Now I really can't tell whether it's real or not. You sunk an entire cruise ship, Carl. Cockatoo. On one hand he might join in. Blur. Are you sure that was me? Would think I would remember something like that. Cockatoo. On the other hand he just had patrol so he should be tired as fuck and craving the bed. Carl, I watched you fire a harpoon into the captain's face. Blur. That sounds dangerous. Drugs. No shit. You were headbutting children off the side of the ship. Cockatoo. Blur. That must have been horrifying to watch. Then you started making out with the ice sculpture. Blur. Thank God that the children weren't on board to see it. He has a point. Drugs. No he does not. Carl? Why is the lifeboat all red and sticky? Blur. Well I guess you could say it is red and sticky. Carl, what are we standing in? Blur. Would you believe it's a strawberry milkshake? Cockatoo. I don't think anyone would believe that. Drugs. Let alone Sho. No I would not believe that. Blur. Melted gumdrops. Blur. Boat nectar. Blur. Some of God's tears. Drugs. All made when Blur popped into existence. Tell me the truth, Carl. Cockatoo. How could you Nem? Blur. It's the lovely elderly couple from 2B. Cockatoo. Make that bet. Carl. Blur. Well they were taking all of the crescent rolls. Fair enough. Drugs. I'm sorry. Fair enough. Cockatoo. WTF. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Blur. I will not apologize for art. Drugs. Art. Where are the other lifeboats? Blur. Well you won the prize. I didn't even notice that. Cockatoo. I am losing brain cells at this. Drugs. You had brain cells? Where are the other lifeboats, Carl? Blur. Looking at the trajectory of the moon and the sun. Probably at the bottom of the ocean. I bit lots of holes in them. Blur. I have a problem. I have a serious problem. Drugs. You don't say. You are just terrible today. Cockatoo. God damn it, I still don't know whether this is one of those memes or not. Blur. Do you hear that? That's the sound of forgiveness. Drugs. As if you'd be forgiven that easily. That's the sound of people drowning, Carl. Blur. That is what forgiveness sounds like. Screaming and then silence. Blur has logged off. Coffee has logged off. I'm Ian. He's not wrong. Drugs. He sure of hell isn't right either. 11:41 a.m. It's been awfully quiet. Blur has logged on. Jazz has logged on. Drugs. What the fuck? Cockatoo. God fucking damn it. Just. We're supposed to be on vacation. Blur. I don't know about you but I am having a wonderful time here. Drugs. Of course he is. Just. You toppled a South American government, Carl. Blur. The people have spoken. Viva la resistance. Just. You pushed the resistance leader into a giant fan. Cockatoo. So much for Viva la resistance. Blur. He was a traitor and a scoundrel. He was trying to stop you from pushing other people into a giant fan. Drugs. And not even surprised. Not even a little? Drugs. What the fuck did he do this time? Oh, that was a foot. I appear to have swallowed an entire person. Cockatoo. That would be the hotel bartender. Well, that explains why my mojito is taking so long. Cockatoo. It was horrifying. Your mouth unhinged like a snake. Wow, that sounds pretty awesome. Wow, that sounds pretty awesome. I can't go anywhere with you, Carl. Drugs. WTF Tensei. That hurt my feelings. Now we're both in the wrong. To be fair, unhinged mouth sounds cool. I want to go home. We're leaving. In that case, I should probably mention that I filled our luggage with orphan meat. What? Cockatoo. What the actual fuck? Drugs. I don't know whether or not I'm shocked at this point. Well, I'm building a meat dragon, and not just any meat will do. A meat dragon? Drugs. Are they on drugs? You know what? Forget it. I'm not even shocked anymore. Cockatoo. Fair enough. Neither am I. That's no fun. This has become the norm for you, Carl. I'll have to try harder next time. Drugs. God no. Please don't. I feel like I've been issued a challenge. It's too late now. Drugs. Does Blur not know Jazz's name? I totally don't remember your name. Cockatoo. Apparently. We've known each other for 3 years, Carl. And what an impression you've made. Not even my memory is that bad. My name is Paul. Why do they both have English names? I thought they were Japanese. Drugs. Well, they could still be Japanese but have English names. Still weird. Those are old men names. I thought you were a woman. Why would you think that? Mostly the hat. Are you sure? Drugs. Are you sure? Of course I'm sure. If you'll excuse me, I have some pictures to delete from my computer. Blur has logged off. Jazz has logged off. Cockatoo. Drugs. What kind of pictures do you need to delete? Cockatoo. They are both children. WTF. 4:09 p.m. Almighty Leader has logged on. Blur has logged on. Almighty Leader. Carl. I know you've done something. Drugs. WTF. Cockatoo. I was so sure it was a meme. But Nezu. I am in so much fear. Whatever do you mean? Almighty Leader. You've always done something. It's a lovely day out. We're having a good time. What have you done? You mistake me for some sort of scoundrel. Drugs. You're saying you are not a scoundrel. Almighty Leader. I am a respected member of the community. To even insinuate, Almighty Leader. Okay, Carl. So what did you do today? Well, let's see. I washed the car. Cockatoo. I highly doubt that. Almighty Leader. I made a donation to the local girls' scout troop. Almighty Leader. Sure. Drugs. Nezu doesn't buy it for a minute. I returned an overdue movie at Blockbuster. What's that? Drugs. No idea. Almighty Leader. What else? I stepped on a ladybug by accident. Almighty Leader. Go on. And I baked some banana bread for our neighbor Pat. I believe that's it. Done. Cockatoo. Surely that isn't it. Almighty Leader. That's it? That's all I did today. Drugs. Really doubt it. Almighty Leader. Drugs. WTF. Cockatoo. The fuck you mean? Pose. Good. Almighty Leader. Carl. What is that? I may have forgot to mention one of my activities. Drugs. I fucking knew it. Almighty Leader. Carl. I apologize. That was wrong. Almighty Leader. Explain, Carl. Well, from here it looks like a weather balloon. Cockatoo. Does it? Does it really? Almighty Leader. I'm not in the mood for this. Drugs. Blur's fucking dead. I think it's just a lens flare and some dust. Almighty Leader. Just tell me, Carl. I may have created a crack in space-time. Cockatoo. Drugs. I'm not sure I am entirely surprised. Still shocked though. Almighty leader. Or through which to collect millions of baby hands. Drugs. What the actual fuck? Fucking hell. Almighty leader. Or what do you mean, huh? Almighty leader. I think I was expecting worse. Cockatoo. Worse. It is Nezu. Drugs. Yes, but literal baby hands. Or worse. But this is totally fucked, bro. Dude, he was eating hands earlier. And stuffing suitcases with orphan meat. Almighty leader. I know, but after last time with a nuke in the faces. Drugs. Cockatoo. The faces? Or come on, look at this. How did I even do this? Almighty leader. I don't understand how or why you do anything. Drugs. Or do you know what it feels like to be Carl right now? It hurts. Not as much as the babies, but it hurts. Drugs. What? Almighty leader. A Carl? Cockatoo. Oh god, what now? Or what? Almighty leader. Why are there only hands from white babies? Or, well, you know, Witty's gotta pay. Almighty leader. Or, and the payment is baby hands. Blur has logged off. Almighty leader has logged off. I am confused. Drugs. By now I'm fairly sure it's one of those meme things. But what was that last bit? Cockatoo. Did you not pay any attention in history at UA? You know I was asleep in that half the time. Drugs. Round 200 years ago people discriminated others based on their skin. Now it's the quirks. That's fooked up. Cockatoo. It really is.